for 4 sessions isn't enough, limiting it to 32 players in the squad isn't enough, and this is the latest thing that they're feeling is the right thing to do on the road to forcing the GAA to make a decision on this. The evidence so far would suggest that the GAA aren't really for turning on they're not for turning yet with that specific ploy, which is interesting to see that, well, we're going to double down on it as opposed to try something different.
Yeah, like, because that was definitely a very reasonable criticism of how this thing has gone over the last little while, that players have not shied away from, but have decided not to speak to the media at all, when that could have been one of the avenues where they could have voiced their concerns about the current situation. This would have been another avenue that they could have used to voice their concerns, and they're cutting it off. But the contradiction here is that some of these commercial events that they'd have been speaking at would have contributed to the back pockets of some of these players. The very thing that the argument is about is the back pockets of these GAA players being lightened because of the fact that they're paying a little bit more to train, essentially. So it is unusual that this is the next step, but then you also have to consider what else could they do. It seems that they're dancing around the subject of actual strike action here, which would be the thing that would really hurt the GAA. I'd like to see some sort of audit done on how much the pre-championship launches actually contribute to the GAA economy. I dare say not very much. I could probably count on one hand the number of extraordinary headlines that have actually been gotten from those championship launches over the last 5 years, for example, and a lot of them would have been at club level. So the platitudes, the boring interviews are not going to happen, and that's the thing that's changed as a result of this. So not very much.
Yeah, look, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out, and it is hard to see. It is difficult. It is difficult from the GPA's point of view. It's difficult from Tom Parsons' point of view, because, like, you talk about, like, what's the next option, and you don't want to burn up all your lifelines, because ultimately that it's not going to reflect well on him. If ultimately he has to play what's the ultimate lifeline, phone a friend card, then that's gone. So that's his last negotiating policy. It ultimately starts to threaten his position as the head of the GPA, in the sense that, like, he's played all his cards, and if that doesn't come off, he's going to look like a bit of a dead duck. So, like, it's a bit of jeopardy now at the minute. You don't want to put all your cards on the table, to continue the analogy, and it will be fascinating to see how it plays out from here. But as I said, like, I don't know if the GPA haven't shown any appetite to move with basically what they've done already. This is just an extension of that. I'm not sure what would change other than, like, a strike. And the other point about it, like, it being your last lifeline, it isn't, the GPA would tell us, it isn't the most important issue affecting players, which is obviously in relation to player burnout. So if you are going to use that strike card for this, then what do you do when it comes to trying to affect change in that regard? So, like, the other thing we should probably say here is that when it comes to some of these commercial events, the GAA do run them. That's not just going to be I don't know, Avonmore or whatever who runs the commercial event. The GAA themselves often run their own media events. So I guess that's what they're looking at. They're like, well, we're not going to cooperate with your set of things here. So they're looking at all the ways that the relationship exists between the players and how the GAA sweat the asset that is the players. So they're trying to cut down on that. Like, I do think that it's not even close to some of the other sports. Like, I mean, when you've got, if you look at, say, professional American sports, and media availability in the week of a game is just on a completely different level to, say, GAA anyway. So cutting off that access, I mean, doesn't do very much, because I don't think GAA media access has been very forthcoming anyway. Yeah, and as you say, it's often, I mean, there's an interview with Leeroy Keegan coming up later on, and it's well worth watching, and it got in just when they happen, the band came in. Like, no, and like, look, it's that is as it is, but whether it is enough to change the game, really, I think is your point. It'll be interesting to see. And, like, look, there are obviously, the pinch point is when you start to put the pressure on the brands that are associated with the GAA and paying to be associated with the GAA, when they have to start calling and going, listen, could you just do that little thing, because it's really causing us a bit of a headache over here. That's the one that's
that's a fair point.
The game.
And in fairness, the week of a game, you probably will have your brand splashed on the back page, like especially in the summertime, if there's no Premier League or rugby to contend with. Those, albeit mediocre interviews that get done in the build-up, still dominate the headlines, because you've got a star of a team speaking, which is a rarity, and your brand will invariably be on the back page of the newspaper. So that exposure is gone in this setup. So yeah, I guess I can see why it's done, but I think there'll be plenty of questions about what the actual impact would be. I think phone a friend, by the way, is the worst lifeline. I think that's
Really?
Ask the audience. Is the 50-50 and ask the audience are definitely better.
They haven't a clue. Like,
well, if you use it early enough, it's a guaranteed win. Like if you use it before 8,000, you're probably going to be fine. Phone a friend.
But is this a reflection on your friends? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Is like that is the surely everybody.
By the way, I think the new lifelines, of course, is ask Jeremy Clarkson.
That's a great one. I think that's a great one. I really think that's a great one. I've really warmed to him, I have to say, since the Clarkson's Farm stuff. Did you watch that?
No, I didn't.
Well, look at there you go. I read a review of it, and they were like, the review started out saying, I know.
Okay.
He is a pain in the hole, but Clarkson's Farm is charming, and it's not. Most of the charm is not, to be fair, about him, but it has me he's he has a lot of interesting worldviews, but I'm sort of back in the Jeremy Clarkson train.
Right, interesting. I didn't know you were ever off it in the first place, to be honest. It's of no surprise to me whatsoever that you're a Jeremy Clarkson stan.
Oh, the connotations thereon are desperate. Welcome to our YouTube audience, by the way, who had the first 5 minutes or so without us, and plenty of hilarious comments coming in off the back of that on that it would be Dara O'Toole, and good morning to you, Dara, saying that it would be a great setting to add, as in the silence, automatically silencing us when there's a code red Yara alert.
That's a good
which
shout,
might have been
actually.
a bit earlier.
That's a very good idea.
You missed it. Almost saying that
general is probably the best way forward.
Missed it earlier on, almost saying they don't care about Tyrone. They're blot in the cop book. Not even contenders for the All Ireland, I think he said, if I'm paraphrasing correctly.
That's it. You just saw me miming.
So the football last night was off the charts. Gareth Bale is still a really good footballer, it turns out. We just don't get to see him playing that often, and he did score a couple of crackers last night, and Wales are suddenly within whisker of getting to the World Cup. Italy obviously is a big story arising from the games last night, and they were I did read somewhere this morning they had like 32 shots on goal. I didn't see what North Macedonia had. I'm assuming it wasn't anywhere north of about 5 or 6, but obviously they did manage to get the 1-0 win, get themselves into the final round of the playoffs. There's great fuss about it. They're playing Portugal, am I right? So like
Porto.
Fair play to them for getting that far.
Yeah. I need to actually check these stats on the Italy game that you're bringing up here, because it did, like, it kind of felt at times that, like, okay, this is a slight battering, but it's not necessarily 32 shots, you're spot on, but only 5 of them on target.
Right.
Is actually the stat I was looking for there. We rarely see 32 shots for one team in the Premier League, but in terms of the possessions, like close to 70%, 5 shots on target, it's not too dissimilar to a top of the Premier League table versus the bottom of the Premier League table matchup. The thing with Italy is, obviously, as the statistic shows you, is their shot selection was so bad. If you look at the highlights, all it is just a collection of Berardi shooting from outside the box in efforts that the North Macedonian goalkeeper is always going to save, or ones that sailed over the crossbar. He's probably going to become public enemy number 1, but the real villain last night was Jorginho for complaining as the ball is being struck and put into the bottom corner of the net about this supposed handball committed by the North Macedonian goal scorer. It looks so bad in slow motion when he's controlling the ball and Jorginho kind of slows his run, puts his hand up and is like, referee, close down the man, and you go straight to extra time, because even just at a split second just allows him to get the shot away. And I'd like to see the XG on what that shot was. I presume it's 0.02 or something like that. It's a 1 in 10,000 sort of shot, and it was just an incredible moment. Like it's nowhere near. This is on a completely different scale to it, but it kind of reminded me of just that bizarre goal that Sheriff scored against Real Madrid to beat them in the Champions League earlier on this season. That got them nowhere. This gets North Macedonia within a game of the Euros. A very, very tough game, admittedly, but I don't think anybody saw them winning last night. We had Paddy Agnew on the show yesterday, and he says this is not a hangover from the Euros whatsoever. They've actually been okay. There's just been a couple of aberrations. As it turns out, there's possibly deeper problems there. Again, though, they're not the first team who have won a Euros and failed to qualify for the World Cup after it. Like Czechoslovakia failed to do so. Greece in 2004 obviously weren't at Germany in 2006. So it happens, but this is Italy. This is the first time they've not made a World Cup in back-to-back times. North Macedonia don't have Goran Pandev anymore. It's a huge shock, and it's a disaster for Italy. There's no way of painting it otherwise.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure last night because the both games ended to sort of add a time around the same time. Listening to the commentary around the Wales match, it was it was like, and to be fair, Wales did nearly get a third and make it 3-0, and that obviously would have been sort of it wrapped up, but it was very much like a Wales are sailing to the line here, and suddenly Austria get a goal, and I don't know, was there like 15-20 minutes to go, and it's sort of all on, and there was a bit of a shout for a penalty for Wales as well later in the game. The sleeve rule, it was a clear, did you see it? It was like a clear hand to ball motion, but the sleeve rule anyway apparently ruled it out. But there was all this drama going on, and they were both sort of ticking towards the end of added time at the end of the game, and I wasn't sure quite which one to get on, but it was Italy, North Macedonia all day long, and I don't know, look, you always find yourself in the mornings after these games going, well, if only Ireland could just, like, a little bit of that over there and a little bit of that in the other place. And look, I don't know, it's probably not really about that from our point of view this week. But yeah, Gareth Bale, and he I saw somewhere where he said it's the most important game of his career or something like that. Was that? I mean, again, I know I'm throwing things at you this morning. Where you're
no, I think he was asked.
You've
that.
done good fact checking already.
I think he was asked that directly. I heard that clip on Sky Sports News this morning. He was like, "Is this the most important night of your career?" So I think he was kind of pushed into saying that.
Okay.
He might have said it in one of the other places in fairness that I might have missed. But I would say that, I mean, beating Belgium is the most important night of his career. Like, that is the peak of this Wales team. To get back there. Like to qualify in this format is incredibly exciting, though. It must be said. Like, these one-legged affairs. Obviously, they're playing at home in their final, and that's going to be a hell of an evening if they qualify. So the thing is, Wales have had a collection of nights that they can choose from. Like, if you're talking about being envious at North Macedonia. Like, I mean, in fairness, they've had the Nations League to thank for a bit of that. The nation we should be really envious of is Wales, and they're going through their, if Ireland went through their golden period in the 1990s, Wales has certainly experienced that in the last 7-8 years, and it is a golden generation. There's no question about it. It went with the likes of Ramsey and Bale, and I think sometimes we just need to just remember how good Gareth Bale still can be, and it's a mental thing that has stopped him from being consistently one of the best players in the world. But for a time during Messi and Ronaldo's peak, he was the third best player in the world. It's wild that his career is just petering off the way, and every year on year, because if he wasn't doing that for Wales, you just go, it's grand, he's sort of at the end of his career, and what difference does it make anyway? He should be playing regular football for a top team. Yeah, and like I guess we did see glimpses of him being brilliant for Tottenham when he came back to the Premier League last season, and then also other games where he was crap, and it's just because he's just not that bothered sometimes, and he's lost a little bit of interest, it seems, at that level. But he obviously doesn't. He's not affected by that whatsoever for his country, because it matters so much to him, and he's like desperately interested in Wales qualifying for these competitions. So when you see him in that sort of full flow, it actually is it's a brilliant sight to watch. He's a phenomenal player, and as you say, both of the goals last night, it wasn't just a free kick. Both of the goals were sublime. Yeah, beautifully taken. MOC on YouTube says 2 shots on target, 2 shots off target for North Macedonia, and Connell Foynes says Macedonia were full value for their 1-0 win. You know what? I'm having that, because like if you're watching a team completely try and pot shot you all night, you're going to sit back and be like, this is fine. Like, I know that there's Italy are to blame a little bit for a lack of accuracy, but if you've got 32 shots and 5 of them are on target, there is something badly wrong in how you're actually selecting to take your shots. And I think Macedonia were happy enough to just sit back. It's also there's a lot of interesting stories across the papers this morning. I mentioned a couple of them already, but Martin Samuels in the Daily Mail, in his column this week, today, writing about, makes a good point about the nice words. I don't know if you saw this. Harry Kane was out. He did a piece with Dan Rowan that I saw during the week with the BBC, and he was talking about like lots of nice words about the situation in Qatar and about England going to the World Cup, and how they've been internally educating themselves on the human rights situation and the oppression, and they're in a better position to know about this stuff and to speak about it. And I just thought Martin Samuels had some good stuff to say about it today, that ultimately it was just words, and that look at on the face of it, there's going to be a lot of wringing of hands now, right? Like over the next number of months and into the World Cup, there's going to be players, coaches, everybody in and around those teams that have qualified for the World Cup are going to be wringing their hands, looking at shoelaces, and sort of half apologetic about having to be out there. But we're going to go and educate ourselves, and everybody's going to have nice things to say about. Even I think FIFA are at it now. They're talking to Amnesty about the situation over there, that suddenly they've realised actually this is not this isn't what we bought into, which seems slightly bizarre. But
it struck me from reading his comments about the nice words and ultimately them being totally meaningless. Like, they're going out to play a World Cup there, and ultimately, like, it's all come to light obviously over the last couple of months in terms of the value of sports washing, but that as a society, how we are led into these situations by these organisations repeatedly, the organisations who themselves have shown to have operated in fairly dubious manners to award these tournaments to various despot countries around the globe. We're led into it. Like, there's nothing we can do about it, and we suddenly find ourselves in a position where we're going to have a World Cup in a country like Qatar, and it almost brings you back to that situation of, like, what is the end point of that? These bodies are never going to self-regulate themselves anyway, and it brings you back to the question about, I saw it brought up somewhere else during the week. I should have made a note to quote it this morning, but about that idea of some sort of a body that's independent to FIFA and UEFA and all the international sports, at least as a start, the Olympic organisation, the whole lot of it, as some sort of a moral guide. I know that sounds, I know there's going to be 10 comments coming in going about how woke we all are, but some sort of the moral guide is a very loose terminology around it. You'd have to set up some sort of parameters, but something that's an agreed touch point. They'd all have to sign up to it, of course, which is the great difficulty here, but some sort of an agreed touch point as a filter before Qatar gets the World Cup, where there is some sort of a body that has the right to veto and say that ain't happening because, or Newcastle
a fit in person's test
because, but
a fit in proper person's
exactly like the remit and the scope of it, you could only imagine it would put the GPA and the GAA's tete-a-tete in the halfpenny place, but there has to be, I can't see any other situation than removing the control for the ultimate arbiter of the decisions can't sit within the organisations. It just can't.
Does that not just become a situation like WADA, for example, where you have this independent global anti-doping body, and I guess on a more local level people can do whatever the hell they want as long as people get in line? I guess it's different, it's less secretive.
I think it is different.
I'm not for one second equating these two things, but when you say an independent global body, that's something that obviously that they had to do in the fight against doping, because obviously there's a bit of a jingoism and a nationalistic sense of we need to win medals. This is obviously completely different on a far more important scale as well. I'm just not sure though if there's anything that you could do on that level that would be able to take away the bottom line, which is FIFA made a commercial decision in getting this thing to Qatar.
I understand entirely that the words out of my mouth are so naive. They're childlike comments. They totally are. They are. I totally accept that. They are based in La La Land, right? The idea that FIFA would sit down and go, give me that charter, I'm going to sign up to it, without including some sort of ultimately we have the veto. But like, the reason I would say it's different from WADA is that body takes the Newcastle ownership proposition in front of them, they look at it for half an hour, they pretend they're doing work for a couple of weeks, and they lash together a one-line email in response, and they say, hey, no, that can't happen because of this.
Who would the high sparrow of this organisation be?
I don't know. That is the next Friday's question, and I will give it some thought in the meantime. But
the Dalai Lama, or something.
In an Irish context, right? Somebody like Gary O'Toole.
Yeah, like I mean, yeah, like I'd say,
right? Like somebody who we can trust. You know,
like, I mean, yeah, I say.
I mean, I get very specific, but
I mean that's very
I'm just saying that's that person who we know and trust, and you know, isn't going to do an Aung San Suu Kyi on us down the track. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe. Like it's interesting. I didn't see the Dan Rowan piece with Harry Kane. I saw Harry Kane do the press conference, and I think what it probably told me is that we learned a lot a couple of weeks ago about this conversation, rather than learning a lot now, because now everybody's just got ahead of the game, and all the media trainers know that this is going to be a question, and it's like, right, okay, we got to address this head on. Here's how you, in fairness, Harry,
hangdog,
what?
Right? Look, hangdog,
yeah.
as hangdog as you've ever looked.
Kane's
look, hangdog. Stare at your shoelaces. Do a lot of that. Don't look directly at anybody. You're half embarrassed about going.
No. Kane looked out at the cameras. I thought Kane would just put on an absolute textbook performance,
right.
Absolute masterclass. And one of the reporters who asked him the follow-up question, sorry, I just saw a clip on Sky Sports News, said, "Well said, Harry," at the end of one of his answers.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that was said. So like he clearly won the room over. But I think what is more telling is maybe a couple of weeks ago when the likes of Thomas Tuchel and to a certain extent Eddie Howe were kind of caught unawares about these questions and were a little bit surprised by the gumption of journalists to continue to ask questions after that one press conference. That was when the true colours were shown, whereas now all the players going to Qatar are like, well, this is going to be a constant drumbeat of questions. We need to be prepared. They're going to select carefully who's going to be put out in front of the media, and they're going to make sure that those people are very well trained. So we're going to hear a lot of the same lines, I suspect, over the next little while. We're not going to hear very I don't think anybody's going to step out of line too much and say something that we haven't heard before.
Fergus Keogh on YouTube asks, will OTB cover the World Cup or take a moral stance? And all media organisations and everybody who in any way touches the World Cup will have to have these conversations, and I would like to think that if we do end up covering it, and of course, Fergus, I think it's nearly unavoidable. It's the same point that we made about Newcastle a couple of weeks ago. Everybody's fairly outraged about what happened, but ultimately at some point or another you're going to end up having a football conversation. But if we do go down that route, that we will balance it out with some sort of coverage of what's actually happening in the country. That would be my view on it. I don't know, we'll see what happens down the track. And John Claffey says that Clarkson's farm was the best part of lockdown. Amazon Prime on. Have you? Is Clarkson's Farm new news to you this morning?
No, I've heard the name, but I haven't obviously seen any of it. Not an Amazon Prime subscriber either, so need to get on that.
Get on it on. It's top content. It is 5 to 8. It's Friday morning and you're watching OTB AM. Here's what's coming up for you between now and 10 this morning. Eoin is going to tell us about all the... It says 7:45 there, but we got slightly derailed and that's my fault and I apologise for that. We'll make up the time, don't worry about it. There'll be a headwind behind us when we get past 8. The permutations of the weekend of football, because it's a pretty interesting one. He's going to take us through exactly what it means for your team this weekend, or not, as the case might be. Alan Quinlan after that is going to look ahead to the start of the TikTok Women's Six Nations this weekend. Vincent Munster, pretty interesting. He's had Graham Roundtree on the Red 78 podcast this week, and is he going to get the Munster head coach role? We'll put all that to Quinny. Connacht Leinster, of course, this weekend too. Sports pages 25 to 9. Lee Keegan, we've been chatting to him during the week and he's got plenty to say about the re-signing, if you want to word it that way, of Oisin Mullen, and plenty more as well besides around the Mayo situation. Ray Moylette is in action tomorrow in Leeds, and it's a really interesting story, and he's going to join us live on the line just after 9 this morning to look ahead to that fight and tell us how he's getting on ahead of weigh-in. Phil Egan with reflections on last night's football at 20 past 9, and John Giles from last night's show will be with us after 9:30 this morning. But before all of that, a reminder that you need to get ready to cheer on Ireland in the TikTok Women's Six Nations. To launch this year's campaign, we're giving away 2 tickets to see Ireland take on Wales tomorrow, 4:45, RDS Arena. If you don't win these tickets, go and pick yourself up a pair and get on down to the RDS. The lucky winner is going to be entered in the draw as well, to be with a chance to win an overnight stay in the stunning Intercontinental Hotel on the night of the game, tomorrow night. So to enter today, just tell us what you think the score is going to be this weekend between Ireland and Wales. Wherever it is that you're watching us this morning, just comment on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere at all. And before 9, we're going to pick our daily winner of the pair of tickets, and then at 9:30 that daily winner is going to go into the hat with the other 4 daily winners, and we will pick the overall winner of that overnight stay as well in the Intercontinental Hotel. So Ireland in action against Wales, the International Women's Rugby at the RDS. Nothing like it. Be part of the action, and if you don't win those tickets, you can head along to ticketmaster.ie to pick up your pair. Right, GAA.
Are you ready for your brain to explode? Are you ready for your cranium to enter a whole world of pain?
Else, I'm just waiting for I'm waiting for Division 3. It's like the Eurovision, where you're like, okay, come on, get to what's happening with my country.
The good news here is that everything is absolutely clear, and everything here is very, very simple. Will I take you through what needs to happen for every team? Your team, if you're playing football this weekend, chances are there's something on the line for you. We're going to go from Division 1 to Division 4 and do this as quickly as possible. Division 1, it's all happening on Sunday at 1:45. There are 5 teams looking to avoid 2 relegation spots, and 5 teams also looking to take that one remaining final spot. We'll start with Monaghan versus Dublin in Clonus. The loser here is bollocks. They go down to Division 2. That is the long and short of it. It's the same for both teams. If they win and any one of Tyrone, Donegal or Kildare lose, they stay up. For Monaghan, with the worst scoring difference in the league, a draw would have them hoping for Donegal to lose by at least 6 points and Tyrone by at least 3. We are allowed to designate the Great Escape title to only one team if they pull it off, and that team is Monaghan. Dublin are then 3 points better off than Monaghan, so a draw wouldn't necessarily finish them off. Mayo versus Kildare in Carrick-on-Shannon. Mayo, they win and they're in the league final. Kildare, they win and they stay up. Kildare people, I've got some good news. The teams on 5 points can still make the league final and Kildare in the best position of the teams on 5 points. So if they win and Armagh lose to Donegal, while there is a 12-point overlap in scoring difference, they will be going to the final. Donegal and Tyrone are also in the same situation, but their scoring difference isn't as good as Kildare's. Donegal versus Armagh is happening in Letterkenny. Donegal win and they stay up. If they lose and Tyrone win, and there is a winner in Clones, they're probably going down. The draw in Clones would have them frantically checking their Scorpio app if they get beaten, but they're better off than Tyrone, Dublin and Monaghan on that front as it stands in scoring difference. So Armagh then, if they win and Mayo don't beat Kildare, they're going to the league final. And then finally, Kerry versus Tyrone and Killarney. Kerry already through to the league final. Tyrone, if they win, they stay up. Lose, and they're screwed. Donegal and Dublin have the head-to-head over them, and only Monaghan have a worse scoring difference. Clear as day. I'm sure you follow that to perfection.
My head is absolutely melted. About halfway through,
I think you're just.
Are you saying that Kildare could be relegated or get into the league final?
As I said, 5 teams looking to avoid 2 relegation spots. 5 teams potentially in the race for that remaining final spot.
Fair play to Kildare, by the way. That would be a brilliant achievement for them, and just rewards as well. Great team.
If your head is melted, you need to do GAA permutations better. It's the simple truth. Division 2 is happening on Sunday at 2 o'clock. Don't know why they don't have these on at more varying times. I guess it's still. The grand stretch starts on Sunday. Could have done these at a later time. Doesn't matter. Division 2 Sunday 2 o'clock. 2 teams fighting for 1 remaining spot in Division 1. 1 relegation spot still to be decided, with 3 teams mathematically in danger of going down. This is a little bit more simple than Division 1. Offaly versus Cork and Tullamore is where we'll start. This is the relegation showdown. Offaly, if they don't win, they're screwed. They go down. Cork, if they don't lose, are grand. Down versus Clare is happening in Newry. Down, already screwed.
Fair play to them. Down are the only team, I think. There's Galway and then a couple of teams at the top end of Division 1 who are actually giving us a bit of clarity about what's actually happening.
I should say GAA League tables is the graphs we put on screen. These are absolutely amazing. Follow them on Twitter, and they've got the letters beside them in a visual way that I will never be able to. I was
just going to say, just keep those tables on screen and let's just sit here in silence for 10 minutes.
Pay the Angelus and just go to at GAA League tables on Twitter. So that's where we got those images. So what were you about to say about Down?
Fair play to them for being relegated.
Yeah,
because at least
it clears that
takes
up.
the guesswork out of it.
So they're playing Clare. Clare can only get relegated if Cork and Offaly draw and Down beat them by 28 points.
Well, that ain't happening.
So those people who want to go out, sniffing around for dead rubbers, well, screw you. This fixture is as meaningful as it gets. There is every chance that a 28-point win is going Down's way. Meath versus Derry is happening in Navan. Meath can't go up, can't go down, and mid-table mediocrity has never tasted so good. Derry, they're getting promoted if they win and Roscommon lose to Galway. A draw would only do Derry if Galway beat Roscommon by at least 6 points. And then Roscommon versus Galway is in Roscommon. Roscommon, if they lose and Derry win, they will not get promoted. A draw will do for Roscommon if Meath don't lose to Derry by 6 points or more. And of course, a Meath win promotes Roscommon. Galway already promoted. Division 2, we're halfway there, Adrian.
Jesus Christ.
You keeping up? How's your head?
Not in the slightest. It is, if it was possible, even more melted. The main thing I took away from that was, what the hell is wrong with Meath football? This team that we were talking about not that long ago, is we were being convinced by all sorts, Owen, and I think you probably know who these people are, that Meath were live All-Ireland contenders.
I think we were being convinced by all sorts that they were going down a few weeks ago, so I think they've done well to be in mid-table safety right now. No Talton Cup in Park Talton this year. See what I did there?
That's beautiful.
Thanks very much. Division 3, Sunday 2 o'clock as well. 4 teams still in the hunt for 2 promotion spots. 3 teams still in danger of falling into either of the relegation spots. So Antrim versus Westmeath in Belfast. The winner of this game will get promoted if Limerick lose. So Antrim, they lost to both Louth and Limerick, so if Limerick get a draw, Antrim will need Louth to lose to set up a 3-way tie. Antrim have the best scoring difference in the league, so a 3-way tie would suit them nicely. Westmeath, this is your county, Adrian. Listen to this.
It's the only bit I'm going to listen to.
They have the head-to-head over Limerick. So if Westmeath win, a draw will not be good enough for Limerick, assuming Louth win their game. So I'm sure that's pretty. Westmeath are playing Antrim in Belfast, as I just said.
So just go over that again. So if Westmeath beat Antrim, so they have the head-to-head over Limerick. I'm clear on that. If they beat Antrim, that's it.
I haven't a clue, to be honest.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, whatever I just said there. Yeah, just play it back. Just play it back. Laois versus Longford is taking place in Port Laois. Laois, if they win, they will stay up. If they lose, they will go down, unless Wicklow beat Louth. Longford, a win will only be good enough to keep them up if Wicklow lose that game to Louth. Then you've got Limerick versus Fermanagh in Limerick. Limerick need a win to be sure of promotion, given Antrim and Westmeath Both have superior scoring differences, but of course you knew that. Fermanagh, almost certain to not get promoted. They would need Antrim and Westmeath to draw and then subsequently beat Limerick by 18 points. And then finally in Division 3 we've got Wicklow versus Louth in Aughrim. Wicklow need a miracle. They need to win, and they also need Longford to beat Laois, and they then somehow need to turn around a 30-point scoring difference gap. Wicklow, I'm sorry, you're done. Louth, don't lose and they're promoted. The scenario that would not see them promoted is this. If they lose, Limerick draw with Fermanagh, and there is a winner in Antrim versus Westmeath, their scoring difference would relegate them to third place. So that's one thing to keep an eye on with Louth. It's not fully done just yet. Then Division 4.
I haven't, by the way, with Westmeath. Like, I was pretty bullish about them earlier in the
I was told I need to get a room at Westmeath, is what somebody on the power ranking said once. Yeah, it's clearly infected me a little bit, your enthusiasm for them.
Well, I mean, just if they are ever included in the top 16, that makes my day, to be honest with you. You're unaware of this information, but I'm delighted with that. But I'm really not even confident about them this weekend. Like, I would have been very bullish about them at this point. But I will note with Longford about to drop like a stone there. It's a division you want to get out of. For the likes of a team like Westmeath that have loftier ambitions, that hanging around with that sort of riffraff in that kind of company, they need to be getting the hell out of. Like, there's no ambiguity. Get the hell out of that division. It's no good can come from it. Like, in a way that you won't be mentioning the other big rivalry, obviously this weekend, the Westmeath Kerry game, in a way that whoever wins that goes into a final against Down, I think. Am I right? Down, to get promoted to whatever it is, 2A in the hurling, or 1B, whatever way they word it, which is a bit of a like poison chalice. Let's face it.
Yeah, you take a lot of hammerings next year.
You take a lot of hammerings. Maybe you develop. I don't know, but no ambiguity about the football. Get the hell out of there. And I will say, for all the Longford abuse that I got a few weeks ago after I said that, there was a bit of the England-Ireland situation going on there in terms of the rivalry between the two counties, and I got a load of it from Longford people. Fair play to them.
Well done. You managed to do a 3-minute slot on Westmeath there.
If they get relegated to Division 4, good luck to them.
Division 4, with no relegation here, this is a little bit quicker. So 3 teams in a battle for one promotion spot. Carlow versus Wexford takes place in Carlow on Saturday at 1 p.m. Remember, Division 4, none of these games aren't taking place at the same time because reasons. So Carlow can't get promoted, Wexford can't get promoted. Dead rubber crew, this is your time to shine. This is officially a dead rubber, Carlow versus Wexford. Now, Cavan versus Waterford is in Cavan at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Cavan are not mathematically guaranteed of promotion just yet, as far as I can tell. The scenario that would see
I think that has just summed up this entire slot. The person that's bringing you the facts of what's happening this weekend has just said Cavan may not get promoted, as far as I can tell.
I'm pretty sure. I'm very sure Cavan are not mathematically
this thing needs to be headlined GAA Permutations this weekend, as far as I can tell.
I'm very sure that Cavan are not mathematically guaranteed of promotion, but I am very sure that they will get promoted. So the scenario that would see them not promoted is this: Sligo or Leitrim win, Tipperary draw with London, Cavan lose and happen to surrender 6 points of scoring difference to Tip. So it's not unthinkable. We're not talking 28 points or 30 points here. It's a 6-point swing. So that is possible. Waterford can't get promoted. So Waterford have nothing to play for. Cavan are probably going to get something from that game. And anyway, the circumstances will be wild for them to not go up. Tipperary versus London is in Thurles at 7 p.m. Tipperary, if they win, they're up. If Sligo win, a draw will do Tipperary, assuming Cavan don't lose. If Leitrim win and Cavan don't lose, Tipperary will need a win. That's due to the head-to-head. London can't get promoted. Sligo versus Leitrim, then finally, we've made it to our last game. It's taking place Sunday at 1 o'clock in Sligo. Sligo need a favour from London. If Sligo win, they still need Tip to lose. If they lose, they're out of the picture. If they draw, a Tip defeat to London would see them promoted. Leitrim also need a favour from London. If they win and Tip don't win, they get promoted. If they lose, they're out of the picture. A draw will not be good enough for Leitrim. So there you have it. Clear as day. I'm sure nobody's going to have to listen back to this whatsoever, or check GAA league tables out and get the actual visual element of that if you listen to us on the radio, because it's just all been explained so succinctly there. And I guess everybody's now very, very excited for a weekend of the calculator gathering dust.
Everybody, including yourself, accepted that was going to be a bit of a tough sell for a few minutes. I think everybody understood that it was going to be hard to follow, but nobody legislated for the fact that not even you were confident that the information we're delivering was in any way based in fact.
That's just based on humility.
That is absolutely outrageous. John Wayne on acid on YouTube And good morning to you, John. I hope your
is
morning.
that the comment, or
I
is
hope your
that
morning
the
is going
username?
well. That's his name, John Wayne on acid. He says, "Okay, back asleep until the papers, etc." As we get into the GAA league piece this morning. Shifty lad, imagine the All-Ireland being tied to the leagues. It'd be class. Alan says, league table explainer sponsored by Panadol. That sums it all up.
That's
for
actually
me.
a very good idea. There's your commercial idea for this time next year.
It's a joke that the Division 4 games aren't on at the same time, says Bernard.
It does kind of throw the bit of disarray into the level of the competition, because Sligo and Leitrim, when that ball is thrown in on Sunday at 1 o'clock, they know exactly what they'll need to do. They'll know whether or not that favour has been granted from London, basically.
Not knowing much about the permutations before you begin, you began that slot. I do feel now as if I know even less.
Nice. That's
the
whole point.
Well done.
Great.
That's an achievement. OTB AM every morning. It's 8:10 by the way, and good morning to you. Brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And a reminder as well, by the way, of our competition this morning. I want to give you one quick reminder of this, because we have to pick a daily winner today, and then to pick an end of week winner as well before we leave you this morning. And we want you to get ready to cheer on Ireland in the TikTok Women's Six Nations. And to launch this year's campaign, we're giving you a couple of tickets every morning this week to see Ireland take on Wales. It's tomorrow, it's 5:15, it's at the RDS, and the lucky winner also going to be entered into the draw for the chance to win that overnight stay in the stunning Intercontinental Hotel just near the RDS as well. So you just have to have a few beers, and then you don't really have that far to walk back to your hotel. That's on the night of the game tomorrow. To enter all of that, you can just tell us what you think the score is going to be this weekend between Ireland and Wales. Wherever it is that you're watching us this morning, just comment Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is. And before 9, we're going to pick our daily winner of the tickets. And then at 9:30, we'll reveal the winner of that stay in the Intercontinental Hotel. International Women's Rugby is at the RDS. There's nothing like it. Be part of the action, and you can get your tickets at ticketmaster.ie. So that's where we're going to leave that. Do keep your comments coming into us over the course of the morning. Up next, going to be Talking Rugby with Alan Quinlan.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Newspapers have called it the greatest club game ever.
Munster legends Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs are joining forces to bring you all the latest analysis, news, interviews and so much more.
The strength of Munster rugby has always been the big boys up front.
There's a lot of pressure on these guys continuously.
I'm actually really excited for it.
The Red 78 with Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the Rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
Fiona, there seems to be a general air, like, I don't know if this is a result of everything that's gone on with women's rugby in Ireland over the past 6 to 12 months in particular, but there seems to be an air of everything's a little more settled this time around going into a Six Nations, that the squad that Greg has been able to pick from, obviously is at the work leading into this Six Nations camp, but there seems to be less chopping and changing. There seems to be a surety and a more sure-footedness about how we're setting forth into the Six Nations. Would I be wrong in that assessment?
No, I think you're correct, but I think that's the alignment I thought that Greg likes to bring. So when Greg came into the role, he made it very clear at the start that the sevens were going to be included. He said they can play so many games. He will be deciding everything on form and how people are training. So it was kind of laid out and everyone bought into that system. And, you know, when you're up at camp and you see these girls training, but Richie, I think the big thing was he also went to those sevens girls and said, I need you to go back to your clubs and I need you to play rugby. I need you to play in this AIL and I will watch the video footage and you will get to the 15s camp based on your merit of playing 15s rugby. And that's, I think, what the players wanted across the board, because people understand, you know, that it's not the same game. It's 15s. It's a lot different. And especially in the pack, it's exceptionally different because there's a lot of lineouts are different. You have to learn a lot more calls and it's a lot more phase play. So I think because of that, everyone seems to be grounded. There's a clean slate. They've pushed aside that report now and he's come in with his new coaching staff, and I think there's a happy buzz up at camp from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, Ciara, it seems to be everybody knows where they are heading into this camp, which is a massive thing for confidence, I guess.
Yeah, it is, exactly. And like Fiona said, there seems to be a good buzz in camp from what we're hearing, which is excellent. And there's a real sense of cohesion. That's what the people I've been talking to, they feel really close, good cohesion. People know where they're at, they know what they're doing or what they're meant to do. So I think that's really good for people going forward, and that there is that real clarity of where you're playing, what you're doing. So I think that's only going to help the group going forward to build that cohesive unit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that had clearly been lacking for the last while, and I guess, I don't want to say held the team back, but it certainly would have informed how those Six Nations the last couple of years went.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance plc.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, 8:15. Welcome back to OTB AM. He's the co-host of the Red 78 podcast alongside the Ireland assistant coach, Niamh Briggs. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Flying it. And we've been just listening to the brand new Women's Six Nations show as well there in the ads, and plenty of coverage across the papers this morning. It's at a real high profile point, the tournament as well. And by the way, I just want to remind our audience that you can check out the Women's Six Nations show. It's available fully up on our YouTube channel. You would have heard there Ciara Griffin, Fiona Hayes on the show, looking ahead to the opening round of the TikTok Women's Six Nations. Gets underway for Ireland obviously against Wales tomorrow, and it's all in association with our friends at Vodafone. We all belong to the team of us. But Quinny, back to the business at hand. Is it almost a sense that we need to look at this as like almost a two-tiered league, in the sense that England are down the road with the contracts, France have the part-time bit going on, Wales also have the full-time contracts, but it's relatively new, so it's Ireland, Italy, Scotland and Wales almost in that second table. Is that the way to look at it, do you think?
Yeah, it is. I think it is a bit lopsided. Ireland, their second match is against France, and it's a difficult challenge. In round 4 they play England, so they're the really tough games. I think they're away to France and England like the men's team were. So it's a bit lopsided, you could say, but like the girls were saying there in the podcast, it has a feeling that this is a new era. There's been a lot of change and a lot of negativity probably put to one side now, and everyone's hopeful that it can be positive. I think the danger for Greg McWilliams, Niamh Briggs and the team and the rest of the coaching staff is maybe there's a little bit of expectation and excitement now, which is great, but they've got to temper that and be careful, because they've had a lot of setbacks, and psychologically, not going to the World Cup. Italy are going, Scotland are going, Wales are going, England are going, France are going. So the teams they're going to play in the Six Nations will all be kind of building towards a World Cup in September, October. So it's tough for them, but there seems to be a good feeling about the group, and obviously the big games, as you say at the start there, France and England away, given the positions they're in, and the continuity and the quality of player, and the level of club games that they all play. I think Wales are tricky as well. Ireland beat Wales 45-0, obviously, in last year's Six Nations. It was a brilliant start to the campaign over in Cardiff. They've 12 full-time internationals now since the start of January. So is that going to benefit them? I'm sure it's going to be a different Welsh team. And how do Ireland cope? But I think Greg McWilliams, all he can focus on in the last period of time is preparing his own team, and the hope is that they get off to a good start. The challenges they have around their play, the improvements that are needed. The set piece was poor at times in that campaign in September, October. I think things improved in November against Japan and USA. And so I'm sure they've been working hard to try and remedy and fix things, but the hope is that they can start well tomorrow, and that confidence and that feel-good factor that seems to be there is generated into the performance.
Is there a danger, Alan, that there's an overreaction to whatever way the Six Nations turns out for this team? Because if they win, people might rush to say, well, everything's rosy in the garden again. And if they start losing, people will say, well, has anything changed? And in reality, for anything to change, it's going to take a whole period of time. That any of the recommendations from the report surely have barely been implemented, let alone actually seen their effects in action over the last little while. Yeah,
it's a very good point, on, and there is a danger of that. if Ireland get off to a really good start, that maybe they'll get, everybody will get excited and ahead of themselves. I think the important thing for Ireland, it's a home game, and their desire should be to win this game. They should be able to deal with that pressure and the pressure that Wales will bring. They'll be very, very determined to try and get a good start themselves. And as I said, they're 12 of the Welsh girls have been training full time since January. They've been backed by the Welsh Rugby Union. Who knows, is that the right thing or the wrong thing? They have some other part-time some of the part-time contracts as well. And I think there has to be some patience here, because the structures that came out in the report and the changes that have now been agreed, which both sides seem happy to draw a line in the sand and move forward, and the improvements around, the analysis. And I think that's one of probably the key areas for any player. And in my own experience, being able to get that feedback and that one-on-one video analysis, player cam, individuals, all that kind of stuff, and have proper people involved that can take the girls to one side and show them examples of how certain situations should work, and how maybe they've made mistakes in it. And so they're kind of starting from scratch a little bit with some of the girls, and they're relatively inexperienced on. I think there's some experience in this side, but there's a lot of inexperience. If you go through the squad, there's, I think Emer Considine has the most caps at 23, but there's a lot of 5-6 cap players in that squad. There's certainly a lot of good, exciting players, but it's about just tempering that expectation and not expecting a lot. I suppose, of course, you can have expectation yourselves, but I think the reaction either way should be one of patience, because there is absolutely no doubt with the structures that are now in place with Greg McWilliams, who is a very good appointment. I think Niamh Briggs gone in there as well. I heard Dorothy Wall speaking about, her impact in the squad, and these girls getting the right game time with their clubs. Obviously, it would be one of the goals is to improve the domestic league and have it more competitive, because obviously the more games you play, the better you get. So a lot of these girls are still learning. They're relatively inexperienced. So we should really be looking to the future and in 12 months time, or it's this cycle now between now and the next World Cup really, that you hope to see improvement on a continuous basis. I'm sure there'll be plenty of ups and downs, and when you play France and England, you're always on the back foot, and you're kind of limiting and minimizing the damage when you play against those sides, because they're so organised, so strong, powerful. But let's hope to get off to a good start. There's a lot of excitement here. I think there's a lot of coverage being given to the women's game in the build-up. It's great that the girls are getting that exposure, and they're doing media stuff and they're doing interviews, and the game is live on TV tomorrow. And I think people want to get behind the team now, and a lot more people will be conscious of that and try and support the girls.
Yeah, and 3 from 5, I think, is what we're saying is the that's the goal.
I think so.
Really, that's
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. They should, dare I say, tomorrow is so important that they got off to a good start, because the second game they're away to France, which is obviously a tall order, then at home to Italy. So if you can get 2 good results there against Wales and Italy, which is very achievable, then you're heading to England in that 4th one, and you've got Scotland at home, and there'll have to be a little bit of even though it won't make any difference to the World Cup, but that last game against Scotland, that will spur the girls on to try and get a result there. So yeah, the goal would be, and I suppose internally they will have, and realistically looked at that situation, said 3 from 5 would be a brilliant result, and how competitive you can be against France and England then is the next step.
Yeah, and the wider conversation about what needs to be done about that lopsided nature of the tournament was a conversation for another day. Yourself and Niamh had Graham Rowntree on the Red 78 podcast this week, Quinny, and there's plenty of chat about him, and he addressed fairly front on, to be fair to him, the situation around the ongoing and prolonged, as he would put it, nature of the appointment of the new head coach. No word on it just yet, but he's getting the gig, isn't he?
I don't know, genuinely. I've been trying to it's been kept very, very, very tight, the whole situation, which is probably a good thing. It's not a good thing for the fans because they want to know, and people trying to find out in the media and getting a little bit of info. But look, it's been a pretty long process. It's the 1st of April next week, and Johan van Gran announced in the middle of December that he was leaving. So it's been a little bit frustrating for people, but I suppose there's different reasons and factors around that.
What are they, Quinny? Is it a case that they just want to leave it because they don't want the noise around it and they just want to get on with the season, or is it a case that they're still looking for the right person?
I think there was obviously a period of time that they put it out there and people applied, and to get people together and look at the merits of each candidate, I think has taken a bit of time. It would indicate that there's probably some good candidates there, I think. And then you have a situation which is, you're possibly appointing within, and the merits of Graham Rowntree, and maybe the continuity that he can bring. So there's been a number of factors. I think obviously the RFU and David Nucifora would have been heavily involved in that. And Six Nations, maybe, even though people probably wonder why, but maybe that was probably decided that they're going to give it a bit of time, not rush into this decision. And I think, that's probably the reason. I think Munster fans would have loved to have known about this in January, and I think it's not great for the players either. I think, they're coming into a pivotal part of the season, and I think the squad probably need to know. The talk and what I'm hearing is it's very, very close to being announced. We may hear something next week, who knows? And to be honest, for anyone listening, there was no conversation with Graham Rowntree and myself before he came onto the podcast about, well, I've got the gig, but we can't talk about it because that's, politically I can't do that. And me saying to him, oh, Graham, that's great. I won't say anything either. There was none of that. He was genuinely in the dark still. He interviewed a number of weeks, as did a number of candidates.
Is he the right person for the job then, Quinny? Is that the other way?
I think, and I've said this from the start, and I probably believe it more and more, and maybe I'll have to backtrack on this and react to if somebody else is announced. But I think the important part here for me is if somebody comes in now and is announced, they obviously don't go near this squad until pre-season. If there was a new candidate came in, someone out of the blue who hasn't been here. So they started pre-season then in end of June, started July, with it could be even the end of July, because I think it depends on how far Munster will go in the URC playoffs, because they run up to the 18th of June, that weekend. Players that have 4 weeks off. So you effectively send the end of July, and then it's a very short period for a new head coach to come in and start to get to know people, people's habits, the characters, the different guys who Graham would know. And I think the longer it's gone on, the more I think having that bit of continuity, it would benefit the squad. He obviously has had to interview well and present his plan and his, I won't say the philosophy, but just where he sees the club going. Individual players who he thinks can get up to the next level and take the game forward. They've signed well with Fekitoa. He's a very exciting signing. They've been incredibly unlucky with RG Snyman. Everybody knows about that. He's a game changer, and someone can just lift the whole group with his performances and what we've seen from South Africa. We haven't seen it from Munster, obviously, but if they can get to a point where that bit of continuity is kept, and then you have to look at, Adrian, assistant coaches. Who were the assistant coaches coming in? And they're the ones that, in my opinion, need to be the ones that can improve the squad, improve the young players, skill-wise, develop the game plan, particularly the expansive style that every team needs to have it in the locker now. You're not going to win trophies unless you can attack and score tries, and from improve the forwards as well. So I think the overall package, and we've seen there's a template there with the Irish squad, the way they've kind of turned the corner and their accuracy is so much better, and small little intricate things like the time the ball is in the air when you're trying to, spread it wide, breaking down defenses, all that kind of stuff. And the players have learned a lot, I think, in the last while of what not to do and what you should do in certain situations, particularly under pressure. And in South Africa, you saw a situation where the team were 21-10 up. They could have been, I think it was, if they defended better, it would have been 21-0. They score a 4 try in the second half, which is brought back for a forward pass, which was minimal, I think, and could have easily been given. And suddenly you're losing the game. Unfortunately, those kind of experiences that you get are negative ones, but you can take stuff from that as well about game management. And I think, so there's still a side, and still a lot of those young players need to understand a little bit more about game management. But there's a fair bit of optimism there about some of these players. One of the things I asked him, which is, I think, just for the listeners to understand, is maybe someone say, why would this be a goal? But when I played with Munster, one of the goals that you do at the start of the season, and I guarantee it's the same in the other provinces, is to get more players on the Irish team. So if you have more players on the national side, like Leinster have the vast majority of them, well then you're exposing those players and they're showing their quality, they're showing their level. They're now international quality. And the more international quality players you have in the group, the better the standard, the better the player, and the better the results. So it has to be a goal. And I asked him about that, and I think I look at across at a number of the younger Munster players, and they have that potential to get up to that level. So there's a lot to do, I think, but there's certainly an excitement there. And from a fan's point of view, I think there's a frustration. And it's probably just my own opinion. If Munster don't win a trophy this year, it's another year without one for sure, and it's frustrating. But how do they exit these competitions? Whether it's be URC semi-final, quarter-final, semi-final, final, or quarter-final, semi-final, final of Europe. It's how they go out and how they play in those games. And we've probably seen a couple of times the last number of years, Munster just going out. It's a negative when you lose, obviously, but it's the way you play when you go out. And they've kind of that they're stained a little bit by some of those exits in the last couple of years, because nobody has a divine right, and I think they're still a little bit off from actually you putting them down as favourites for URC or favourites for Europe. It's just that's not realistic at the moment. But they should be a team that, if you meet them in a semi-final or final, that you're pretty wary of them, and they're going to test you and stuff. So what I'm saying is there's a bit more development in these players, but there's an excitement there. There's with their potential.
Yeah, we shall see what happens on that front, and obviously at the director rugby side as well. I'm sure there'll be interesting developments around that. We've Connacht Leinster obviously tomorrow at the sports ground, and one thing that we wanted to ask you before we let you wave, but a minute and a half here, Quinny, on the Eddie Jones stuff and the RFU. I don't know if you've seen this, but the RFU's been out. I don't know really what they've said. They've kind of said he's not bulletproof, but we're not sacking him. And depending on our results, obviously go in November and next year Six Nations, they're almost in too deep now, are they, to get rid of him?
Well, yeah, possibly. I think there's obviously they've obviously backed him and said, look, it's too late now to change. And I'm sure if they're sitting around the table and saying, well, will we or won't we, someone has convinced the doubters in the room that look what he did at the last World Cup. But I just don't think it's good enough. England, where they finished in the Six Nations, 5th last year, 3rd this year, could have been 5th again. The mitigation is he's missing a few players. Owen Farrell is a tremendous loss to him. Tuolangi, Johnny May, Watson, these kind of players. Can you rely on Tuolangi though going forward? You just don't know with the injury profile he's had. But I think Owen Farrell has been a big loss to him. And he's brought through some young players, but will they have that patience going forward? I think there's a summer tour to Australia for them, how that turns out. And I don't think it's ever too late to, you in an ideal situation, you don't want to be, this far, it's 15 or 16 months out from a World Cup. You don't want to be changing that. But look at South Africa a couple of years ago when they made that change with Rassie and he brought him on to win a World Cup. It's late in the day, but I think at this stage, they've probably decided in whatever meeting that, look, let him bring him forward. Unless there's disastrous results in Australia or the November internationals, I think he'll be leading England to a World Cup. And dare I say it, he may pull a rabbit out of a hat and get them right. And I think come the World Cup, they'll still be a serious contender.
Yeah, dare you say it. Quinny, thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Good man. Thanks, Alan Quinlan there. And you can check out more of his thoughts on Niamh Briggs and in conversation this week with Graham Roundtree. Well worth checking out if you just punch in the Red 78 into any of your podcast apps. You're going to pick that up and enjoy it no end. Right, it is 8:35. We've had plenty of comments coming in about Owen's GAA. I was going to call it an explainer there.
It was an explainer. It was a clear, concise explainer.
Generally, you expect like the explainer that at the end of that you're going to feel much more enlightened about the topic at hand.
Well, I'm sure all of our lovely listeners and viewers have much more of a capability to comprehend the simple than you do.
That's a totally reasonable point. I have no objection to that at all. What have we got here? Bose.
That's a long
I'm
gap.
trying to read the name. Bose and something Ang David on YouTube. Folks, I've decided to take pass level GAA combinations in the leaving cert. Dennis Ryan says possibly Eoin Sheahan's finest moment on OTB. Move over Darren Frail.
It's a very nice thing to say.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a nice thing to say.
I expected Cavan to cruise through Division 4. Their form could be better, says Cavan lad.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
They're down there with that dross. No more than Westmeath in Division 4. Cavan have no business. Division 3. Cavan have no business down there. Do they?
No, I don't think they do. I think that they've possibly been playing down to the opponents, but the results haven't exactly been mind-blowing. Yeah, they've not been great.
Dahi O'Shaughnessy, superb work on. The head is completely wrecked. No work today.
Mission accomplished. I definitely have. I felt like I've used up all my brain power now, and at 8:37, I've got nothing left to give.
John McMorrow, by the way, the Rugby is wondering, is it not surprising that Parsons is starting on the bench? Absolutely. And I think that it does come back to Greg McWilliams has made some big calls. Obviously, before, when the squad was even named, with the absence of Clean Maloney, and obviously his debut at 9 now tomorrow, and Parsons not been included. So absolutely, yeah, it's somewhat surprising. And we will see. And like when the chips fall, I mean, I think everybody would expect that we would beat Wales tomorrow on the basis of what happened last year. Obviously, they are a team that are coming on the basis of the contract they've given out. That probably we won't see the evidence of all of that just yet. But it is possible that Wales will end up joining that group that are ahead now, England and France, over the next few years. And I know that Fiona Hayes and everybody's talking about pushing the report to one side. There's a nagging feeling at me that pushing the report to one side in the long term is not really what's
that's not what they're suggesting. I guess it's just for, in the context of being a player this weekend and all that, you got to put all that stuff to one side, as she says, and focus on the game. But as a rugby union, you'd like to think that's not what is going to happen. Wales will be a very interesting one though, because I think maybe there's been an acceptance that England and France are just more populated, richer countries with better funded rugby union. But if Wales,
you're not having that, are you?
And I'm not necessarily saying I'm having it, but if Wales start to make similar strides on Ireland, then it makes a show of Ireland.
Yeah. Right, a OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Let's just give you a quick flavour of what's happening on the back pages and on OTBSports.com this morning. They've pushed aside that report now, Fiona Hayes and Ciara Griffin on the Women's Six Nations show with Richie yesterday. That's the main story there. Also, he's never got the credit he deserves. John Giles on Seamus Coleman and lots of other stuff up on OTBSports.com for you this morning as well. We'll kick off the papers with the Irish Daily Mirror this morning, and that story across the bottom, I haven't seen it in many of the others. GPA imposed blanket ban on all media. Over to you, Croker, as players pull out of championship launches. That's a story by Pat Nolan, who's got his hands on the video from Tom Parsons last night, who has said to his members that the GAA have reneged on our agreement. So far from winding down. That one seems to be only going in one direction. The Irish Times this morning: best number 2 in the world, ready to be Ireland's number 1 at least for a few days, as Gavin Bazunu sits it out and Quinlan Gallagher takes on that mantle. And that's Gavin Comiskey looking ahead to the Ireland-Belgium game, Belgium B game. And Lisa Fallon inside as well about what can our game learn from the Belgium way. Are you buzzing for Belgium?
Yeah, like I think that the fact that it's not the big stars, people are thinking, this is not going to be a great fixture, but there's still some excellent talent coming to Dublin this weekend.
Duffy's vision: defender backs Irish to thrive in Nations League. End of the world for Italy again. Inside there, that's the Irish Daily Mail. A brilliant photograph on the back page of the Irish Independent this morning from that game. Italy crash out of World Cup. The European champions failed to qualify after a stunning defeat to North Macedonia, and it's Marco Verratti there looking more Italian than you've ever seen anybody look in your life. It's the shorts up look and absolute despair. Mac Williams backs Ireland to bounce back from the World Cup woe, writes Rory O'Connor. And I was a hazard to myself, admits Treaty star Sean Finn after his concussion incident, writes Donica Boyle inside. And there are quotes that are featured in a lot of the papers this morning. There, the Irish Examiner locked and loaded. Owen Cadigan, date with Hurt Kilkenny is a perfect for a Cork team chasing consistency, and lots more inside as well, including Runner Lagar's column there. What else have we got for you on the Star? Wags to riches. Duffy, time has come to hit the big time again. And Aldridge play the tie at United. This is his message to the FA, saying about the FA Cup semi-finals shouldn't be at Wembley, they should be out and about. Photograph of Gareth Bale there as well. Old age pensioner. Tab of the morning, really, isn't it? They can't get away from it. Duffy, I'll stick around for Euro 28. And Bruno Fernandes, by the way, has signed up a £65 million deal to stay at Manchester United until 2027. He's going to earn $1 million a month, I think, something like that.
Wow.
I think that's good business.
Yeah.
This is the auditor now, you see. Nobody would have known that signing up Bruno Fernandes for another 5 years was a good thing to do unless you were the auditor. Ranić is really, this is where he's coming into his own, no?
Yeah, Ranić has become an inside agent and discovered that Bruno Fernandes,
he's a good player.
Yeah.
Well, once they get rid of Ronaldo, I honestly think he can be a big top player for United. I think that
Bruno Fernandes, the guy who had the most goal involvements for 18 months there.
I know, but has gone off the boil since your man arrived, and
it's been good.
It'd be an easy thing to get rid of him now. There'd be plenty of clubs looking for him. It's good business.
Of course, yeah. The hard thing to do was to hand him $250,000 a week.
I wouldn't know about that though. I mean, you need to be the auditor, the inside information that. And one last story from the Guardian this morning that we wanted to bring your attention here. It's Giles Richards. F1 faces calls to quit Saudi Arabia over human rights, and the group Reprieve has demanded that Formula 1 ends its association with Saudi Arabian sports washing after the family of a teenager sentenced to death wrote to Lewis Hamilton pleading with him to speak out on their son's behalf before this weekend's race. And we had an email into the show during the week on that exact topic as to why the conversation about Saudi Arabia didn't seem to include the Formula 1 this weekend, so delighted to highlight that as well. Coming up at 9:15, John Duggan, good morning to you.
Adrian, how are we doing?
Are you buzzing for Belgium?
Well, we're looking forward to the build-up tomorrow and off the ball Saturday on News Talk. Stewie Byrne in studio with Dan at the Viva Stadium, Dan McDonnell and Johnny Ward.
Is that your political way of saying, it's happening and we have to talk about it?
No. We always love talking about football on Saturday afternoon. So
I think I'm actually not tongue-in-cheek when I say that this is actually a relatively exciting fixture. It's just for the sense of getting to see this Ireland team play again. It just feels too long since we've watched them. There is still that wave of excitement around this team.
What I'm excited about is not seeing Belgium, because you're not going to have De Bruyne or Lukaku there. I'm more interested in seeing what Kenny's going to do. Who's he going to play? Gallagher will play. We should expect, I'd say it'll be 3 at the back. Doherty would expect to play on the right wing. Will players like Mark Sykes be involved? Will Conor Ronan be involved in any way over the next week in these friendlies against Belgium and Lithuania? Will Troy Parrott get a run? Scott Hogan and Will Keane have been whacking in the goals in both the Championship and League One. Will they get a shot? That's what I'm more interested in seeing, as opposed to whether we win against Belgium or lose against Belgium, or win against Lithuania or lose against Lithuania. It's the makeup of the Kenny's team, and can we keep the momentum going after going 10 games now with only 1 defeat?
Nathan made a very good point actually the other morning, is that I know this Belgium team they would still be favoured to beat Ireland, right? But Ireland have a greater chance now than normally to beat Belgium. And if they do that, the world ranking points count the same. The world number 1 team in the world has been beaten by Ireland, which is, I guess, like they're not going to have an opportunity like this again to be able to make up that much ground and to get that many points.
I think it was 1966 was the last time Ireland beat Belgium. It was a long time. You think it was the game that set Ireland on their road to Euro 88 was the first game. It was actually after Belgium finished 4th at the World Cup in 1986 and did a great run in Mexico, and we got a last minute penalty and Liam Brady put it in. It was 2-2 draw and that sent us on our way, and that's how good we were back then. But it's funny, this world rankings has always been a bit strange to me. Ireland got to 6th in 1993, but I know it does matter for coefficients and seedings and all that kind of thing, but are Belgium the best team in the world? No, patently not. They were, I would say, the second best team in the world in the 2018 World Cup, but you'd have to also say at Euros and various tournaments they've underwhelmed.
Yeah, that was their peak, 18, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That 66 game is definitely the main thing that stands out for me from that year. It's nothing else football-wise that I can quite remember that it happened in that year.
Well, Eric was born. You ever remember the ad that they had when he was playing for Manchester United? 66 was a great year for English football. Eric was born, Eric Cantona. So it was always a brilliant piece of advertising.
And look, it is right. And of course, I'm being somewhat facetious in asking the question because at least the conversation has moved on from where it had been over the previous year, 18 months, that we're not talking about that anymore, that suddenly it is about much more about the players and definitely about Ireland, and looking forward to seeing that. Since we're on the topic, JD, what else can we look forward to coming up in the show? Give people the big sell?
Well, that's one of the big sells out of the way. The other one tomorrow is that we're going to talk about retirement in sport. We saw Ash Barty retire prematurely. You could maybe argue at 25 years of age, having done everything she needed to do in tennis. So we're going to talk about the whole concept of retirement on the Saturday panel with Niall O'Toole will be coming on and other guests as well. So that's at 1:30. The news round with Sheahan and Will O'Callaghan as always, and as we say, building up to the game between Ireland and Belgium, full coverage. And then we have on Sunday the pay-per-view as always. We're going to reflect on Ireland-Belgium, and then we're also going to have reporters around the country at the GAA matches, because Wexford-Waterford in the second hurling semi-final on Sunday after Cork and Kilkenny meet tomorrow night. Will the Dubs be relegated? We'll have Paul Finlay at that, Monaghan, Dublin, Taggy Fogarty at Wexford-Waterford, and also Colin Boyle is at Mayo's game against Kildare. So jam-packed with coverage. 1 to 5 tomorrow, 1 to 7 Sunday. You know what to do, folks. You need to tune in to News Talk on OTB Sports Radio and listen.
Good stuff, and looking forward to that panel. Niall is a brilliant contributor. Right, what's happening in live sports this morning?
Well, I think it's Italy. It's the sadness of not being able to wear those retro Italy jerseys in November and December this year, because they won't be at the World Cup. Maybe you can wear them anyway. But Alexander Trajkovski actually played for Palermo and scored that goal in Palermo last night. So it was just like a boxer dominating a bout and then just being knocked out with a blow. One punch, North Macedonia, 1-0 against Italy. And since they won the World Cup in 2006, Italy will not have played a knockout game of the World Cup going to 2026. It's quite remarkable what's happened. You'd have to think Jorginho's penalty misses against Switzerland in the group stage did come back to bite Italy a bit. And Federico Chiesa, to me, is the man, and he's been injured, and that's what they lacked last night, at cutting edge 32 shots in goal. Gareth Bale giving the two fingers, like not that he needed to Marca, I thought was fantastic, because I thought that article was so offensive. Call him a parasite, and then you had the cartoon and everything, and then he just delivered brilliantly last night. 2-1 win over Austria. We know he's injury prone. They now play Scotland to Ukraine, Wales. We got North Macedonia against Portugal, and Poland versus Sweden. The Swedes with a 1-0 win over the Czech Republic. It was not going to be any other way with Sweden, was it, than 1-0 after extra time. We have League of Ireland matches in the First Division tonight. We have Seamus Power. What a story, lads. Will they be serving Blas and large bottles at the Masters Champions Dinner in 2023 if Seamus Power wins the Masters? Because he's gone from 429th in the world to 48th. He's going to be in that Masters lineup. It's pretty much effectively guaranteed, because he's won both of his match play matches. He beat Patrick Cantlay 5-4 yesterday after his win the other day against Sung Jae In. So he's set to qualify automatically for the last 16. Shane Lowry not out of it as well. Eric Van Rooyen, he beat yesterday. He takes on Brooks Koepka today. Needs to beat Brooks Koepka to have a chance of reaching the last 16. I don't know if there's local cuisine. Obviously with Waterford, you can put the cliche in about Blas and large bottles of Phoenix and stuff. Is there Kerry a specific cuisine? Is there Westmeath specific cuisine, lads?
Yeah. Have you heard of a thing called butter, John? Kerrygold butter?
Kerry invented butter, is that what we're saying?
Absolutely.
If anybody used to lay blame to it, to be fair, but I mean, I don't...
The first churners came from Kerry.
it's interesting because you have these ads for Kerrygold and taking horses to France and all that. I don't know. I think that was a Kerrygold ad, and Eoin Sheahan's version, which is, have you ever heard of Kerrygold butter?
I mean, it's pretty
kind of a bit of an edge to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of offensive.
See that like
you'd even have to ask.
The Late Show, and then Eoin Sheahan will just come and look at the camera and go, "Have you ever heard of Kerrygold butter?" Ryan's back after the break.
Good impression.
Not as good as Rashard Cooper's though.
No, Adrian.
No Westmeath delicacy, unfortunately.
Is there not? It's nothing.
Disappointing. But Adrian just would just go ahead and steal another county's.
Well,
Anyway.
we're associated with Kerry butter.
That's my point. I mean, Adrian was asked to do like his Kerry Mount or his Westmeath Mount Rushmore, and he put Paddy O'Shea on it.
Absolutely. Why not?
So, like, I want to a Westmeath Blah, is it? Westmeath Champagne.
Why not?
You didn't put Paddy O'Shea.
Yeah,
I did.
He's a Westmeath.
Who else
legend.
did you put on
it?
John Aldridge.
It's Mark Rowan on it.
Aldridge. Mark Rowan.
Robbie Henshaw.
Robbie Henshaw. Gary. Desi Dolan was on it, wasn't he? Niall Horan, yeah. Brezzy. Rory O'Connell.
Did you do the Kerry one?
I did.
Who did you put on it?
Mick O'Connell, Paddy, Gooch, and
Mick O'Dwyer.
Mick O'Dwyer as well, yeah. The two mix. And then Gooch got taken off in the end. Yeah, I think I need to go back and watch that.
Taking a tangent from Kerrygold butter here. JD, thanks a million.
All right, lads.
Looking forward to the show tomorrow. Good man. Thanks a lot for
very
that. It's 10 to 9. It's OTB AM. We've loads still to come, by the way. We're going to talk to Ray Moylette very shortly. He is going to be live in action in Leeds tomorrow. He's back in the ring after a 3-year absence. He's going to join us on the line in a few minutes' time. Any questions or comments for Ray, get them into us. And Phil will be in studio as well shortly as well. But before all of that, up next, we're talking to Leeroy Keegan.
OTB AM.
All right, delighted to say that John West Féile Ambassador Leeroy Keegan joins us on the line. John West, sponsors of the GAA's annual Féile na Nóg and the Féile na Nail as well. Competition is one of the biggest underage sporting events in Europe, and now with a regional dimension, with a third tier to the nationwide competition. Lee, how are you getting on?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks, and thanks a million for jumping on the line. You're obviously involved with the John West as a Féile Ambassador, and important. You feel it's important, I guess, to give back to kids, give back to the next generation coming through.
I definitely, excuse me. I suppose I've been very lucky with my career where I've had good people, and I suppose people I looked up to within the club, and even from a county perspective that I know represent Féile, but then went on to a higher level, playing with Mayo and at high level Westport. So when they give me advice and when I hear to play it at Féile level, I want to get involved from that point of view. Now my Féile career was very short lived, unfortunately. One game, one loss, in out. That was it, unfortunately. So, but that's not the point. I suppose the point of Féile is like it is such it's a massive competition. It gets teams from all around the country together. I can't wait this year to be involved and go to the competition as well, the regional and the national, and see the standard again. I know our own club is always highly involved in it. So yeah, I'm again like to see our club do well, and I love to give a bit of advice to the kids that do come in and do it. But the best bit I always say is just enjoy it. Even as adults, I say if you're not enjoying sport, then there's no point being involved.
Yeah, I was going to ask actually, because I'm sure there's plenty of volunteer coaches around the country who would love to know what that bit of advice, outside of the enjoy yourself bit, which is obviously the important thing at the end of the day, what other sort of thing, like you're not getting into too complex of sort of tactical discussions, whatever, but what sorts of bits and nuggets can you give the kids?
Like from my own perspective is like I just, when I was that age, I just want to be involved in groups from a social point of view. And it got me out of my comfort zone in certain areas. Got to meet some new friends, and then I got to compete. I got to compete at certain levels, and to be honest, it grew me up a little bit when I was younger. So seeing different guys come from different counties and trying to mark them guys and see where I'm at standard-wise and what I need to learn and what I need to do. And I suppose from a coaching aspect, then when we went back trained, then especially underage, we would try and work on some of those little things, be it a tackling skill or kicking, hand passing. I know they're very simple things, but if they notice that I wasn't doing it one week, then obviously I need to be working on it the next week. So that's something that the coach used to drill into me, is that work on the simple things as much as you can, replicate again in the match the week after, be it under 14, 16, minor or 21, it didn't matter what it was. And write down then, not even write down, but just reflect on then, did it go well for you? If not, then what can I do to get a little bit better and train next week? And I was very lucky that I had guys, even from a young age, that were drill that into me. But at the same time, allow me to enjoy my football and not I suppose keep me in a prison that I have to do X, Y, and Z, or else it's going to be the end of the world. It was just, if you do these few things, you might get a little bit better at it. If not, we'll keep working them until you are not perfect, but at a really high level. And again, there's guys in the club, and I know volunteers all over the country are probably doing the exact same thing. And that's why Phil is so successful and why he's getting recognised worldwide. Were
you always sort of one of the top performers coming through as a kid?
Oh God, no, not a football. No.
Why not?
No. I was probably one of the lower ranked ones when it comes to underage football. So I was, but
up to what stage?
Probably up to nearly 20s. To be honest, I was probably too more involved with the likes of rugby and soccer probably when I was underage. To be honest, been from a town like Westport, it is very sport dominant, and I was lucky that I could have a flavour for each sport. So I was predominantly involved with rugby, like say Westport and Connacht underage, up to under 19s, 20s then, and kind of just made the decision that I wanted to play Gaelic, to be honest. I don't know why, but I'm happy I did.
What position were you in the rugby?
Full back.
Right. And was that an option? Like, were you thinking about, was there an option there, a call to be made at some point?
There was, yeah. I suppose I was trying to cling on to as many sports I could for as long as I could. And that's another bit of advice for anyone as well, is play as much as you can while you can, because when you have to make a decision, that's kind of it, to be honest. And I knew when I was getting to that kind of 18, 19, 20-year-old that I was going to have to make a decision, and had a chat with a couple of coaches at under 20 Mayo. They were interested in bringing me in, and they said that they seen a good bit of potential, and I got a bit excited from that and just drove it on from that, to be honest.
They were right. It's like 15 years later, they were bang on. Did you consider like a professional rugby career?
I never really looked probably further than under 20s at the time, because I was still kind of involved with it. Looking at now, reflecting now, I'm kind of happy I didn't, to be honest. I don't know if even look at the standard of some of the players that went after me, it's just kind of ridiculous, and the size of them as well. I'm only a small nugget of a thing when I look at some of the guys that are playing rugby at the moment. But no, I'm really happy with my decision, to be honest. I've met some great people along the way with GAA. Now I'm still an avid rugby supporter. I love watching rugby. Some of the hits do make me sore watching it, but I'm happy to be watching from the telly side rather than on the pitch side.
What at 32 then, when we're about, what are we, 30-40% into the season, whatever it is, how's the body feeling now versus how it might have been a few years ago? Still fresh? Or?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I suppose with the condensed season, we're trying to get ourselves in kind of a peak shape. I suppose games are coming thick and fast, and I suppose Division 1 has been well documented at the moment that the standard is insanely high, and we're at the final stage of our league games now on Sunday. So in terms of body, feeling really good. Relatively fresh considering. Took a bit of time after last year to get myself right again. Spend time with the family, a couple of kids at home now, so that puts things into perspective pretty fast. So once I got that time at home, I was ready to kind of rock again. And when James gave me the call, then come February time, I got excited and jumped straight back in and playing week in, week out. So I think as a player and for myself, I suppose I've seen the two sides from before, where we used to have a 10-week break and then train and play a game, where it's game week in, week out now. I'm definitely an avid fan of that. I know players are as well, getting as much as they can. It just feels a bit different that our season's going to be over in July. That's something we're trying to figure out, and we're already nearly finished March. So you're right, like the season's coming and going in the blink of an eye, and like we're talking about our last league game, round of games this Sunday. It's madness already. So it just shows you it's waiting for no man. So it's about trying to get yourself right quickly, and any little injury at all is going to put you back, because again, with the shorter season, you don't want to be chasing your tail already.
Like maybe it's too hard to tell because of that change of season and this far out, but like, is that format of, listen, I'm just going to go and take a bit of a breather, refresh myself, spend that family time and come back. We've agreed that now as a format, and let's just roll with that for whatever number of years are left.
I suppose I'm older, so I get that option. maybe a mid-20s guy might be different, but yeah, like, I mean, I suppose I'm on year 12 now, or 11, 12 with Mayo, so like I know James very well, so again, it's been smart. I know my own body as well. I said I'm running long enough now to realise that setting myself crazy standards in December, January versus maybe 5 years ago, it's not expectation really, or it's not reality for myself. It's about trying to get myself right for an early start and building into the year, and that's gone pretty well so far. I'm happy where I'm at in terms of my shape and how I feel, and enjoying the group environment. We've quite a relatively new squad again, a lot of young guys coming through, so they're really challenging us, kind of older guys as well, to perform in training, and I think it's been pretty clear that James is picking guys on form within training. We've had a lot of changes throughout the games in the league, so yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about James. There's a lot of good flexibility that I could bring James up. I just want to take an extra couple of weeks here before I come back into that environment again. And I suppose that's the trust we have between manager and players at the moment.
It's funny to hear you talk about like the players, the on-form players in training, because from the outside looking in, it looks like he's got some sort of a master plan of experimentation going on. And I'm going to take a look at a few players, but you're saying it's more to do with lads in training putting their hands up.
Absolutely. Like, guys need, well, if they're not training well, they're not going to get picked. So you're not going to pick a guy that's not performing in training and put him in a high performance game that Sunday or Saturday and expect him to do it. Guys need to be shown well in Tuesday or Thursday or Wednesday or Friday, whatever day it is. And for them to do that, if they're competing really well during the weeks and they're putting their hand up, then yes, they're going to get picked. If they're not, then that's just the reality of high level sport. And us as players know that very well, and James knows that himself. So I don't think it's an experimental thing. I think it's just he wants to see how guys adapt to that high level environment of playing top teams week in, week out. And Joe, we all have to get our chance some stage. Well, like when I was that age, if I didn't get a chance, I wouldn't be here either. So it's about exposing them, getting them ready. And like the championship's only 3 weeks away this Sunday, so it's really important to get as many guys playing at that level as possible.
What we're talking about all the new faces coming in, but the recapture, is that the right phrase? I don't know exactly how to phrase it. The Oisin Mullen not going to Australia bit. I wondered, like, how big a boost was that internally? Was that because he's the sort of player that I think no matter what squad in the country he's in, like the loss of him, you're going to feel that it could be the difference between getting over the line and not. Was it a big boost internally?
Well, he's a beautiful man as well, so it's just a
that helps.
Listen, like Oisin's one of those kind of generational players, and it is well documented how good he is. And yes, when we did see him come back in the change room, I suppose it gave us massive energy because obviously he sees himself as, or sees us as a group. I suppose the trust in the group that we can go far again. And he obviously thought about that and sat down and set out his standards and his targets already. So he obviously has that in his head. And for us to see him come back in at the start of the year was a huge boost for us because again, he's one of our top guys there, one of our best players. And I suppose the way he plays the game, it's very attractive to see. He's just so good at football, like, and I love having him in the squad. I just think he brings a bundle of energy. And just for a guy of a 21-year-old, he's already one of our leaders already, and that shows the type of guy he is within the group already. So yeah, it was a huge boost to see him come back in this year. What
sort of form does that leadership take? Is it more than just the quality of his play?
Yeah, but even the way he trains, it's a train during the week. He does take a night off. He comes to train really hard. He's bringing lads with him then in terms of conditioning games, or like his skill level is extremely high, and he's challenging himself as best he can to get better and better and better. So you see a guy at that age and he's doing that himself, you know, he's in a good spot already. And it doesn't take a lot of management for a guy to see that qualities. And again, to see him come back in and train the way he is training again, it's really powerful for us as a group to see that.
It's wild in an overall sense, like how you mentioned obviously going into the last round of league games, but how even everything feels now. Like, it obviously the Dubs coming back to the field a bit at the demise, then sort of suddenly everybody realises, oh, maybe it's not so bad after all, after looking at the last few weeks. But it still does feel like there's at least five and maybe a couple more like genuine All-Ireland contenders. Does it feel that way? Sorry, does it feel any different in that way for you, Lee, over the last few years in the sense of that evenness?
To a degree, I suppose. Like, I suppose I just focus on ourselves. We always we're going to compete. We're always looking at a high level ourselves, and I suppose as a group, that's the target you want to get to, is the All-Ireland final day, and obviously the outcome is to win it. And essentially, we haven't done that yet. So, yeah, I mean, people can say it's an open championship, but it can be very deceptive to read league form into championship. And I suppose with the shorter kind of gap this year, it's even harder to get a read on. I know even just playing the Division 1 this year itself, say teams are obviously setting out their stall pretty early this year, that they're taking the league extremely serious. And you've seen that the way, as you said, how many games are for grabs this weekend in Division 1 alone. And across every division, there's something for grabs nearly in every division. So I think teams see this as an opportunity now as to get a really good performance on Sunday. And I'm just talking about ourselves now here. Like, Sunday's a massive game for us against Kildare. As essentially it's a do or die situation from now on for the rest of the season. Get a result on Sunday, we're into a league final. The league final, then you're straight into championship. So it's you're right. There is a lot of teams look at this year as an opportunity, but again, we do every year, and it sounds boring, but if we don't look after ourselves, if we start looking externally, then we're only caught in ourselves. It's what we're doing now and what's important now. And for us, although championship's 3 weeks in line, we know exactly what we have to do against Kildare. Any team that shoots 24 points the week before is a serious outfit. So we're looking at that challenge ourselves, and we want to take that very seriously for Sunday and try and get to a league final.
There must have been some, with everything that was going on with Dublin internally, was there any chat about it? Was it because most of the country was looking at it, like they've obviously explained it away, we're in transition, and there's probably a lot in that. But I think on a very one-dimensional level, most of the other country was like everybody scratching their heads almost to try and figure out what was going on. Was there much chat about it internally? Don't give me we weren't talking about it stuff. There must have been some conversation about it.
We don't, and that's the thing. Like if you get caught up in the whole rigmarole of people talking about demise and transition, and then you're just essentially taken away from what you're doing good yourself. And I mean, yes, it's a very easy conversation to have, but like if we start talking about other teams, then we're not worrying about ourselves at all, and that would be a concern. And thankfully, it hasn't been. And like, I'd be telling you a lie if I said we did talk. We actually don't have time to talk about it because we're so busy training ourselves. And I said that when I off training, I don't particularly talk about a lot of sport anyway. So, and like, I suppose the big thing is that, like, because games are coming week in, week out, there is no time to talk about Dublin or Kerry, or we're actually either going to be playing them or we have another game coming. So, to answer your question, that's the answer I'm giving you.
Are you going to give me the same fob off when I ask you about the Philly comments?
No, Lily, stop. No.
They must have been discussed. Were they not at any level?
No. Like, the discussions is literally who we're playing next, and that's genuinely the gospel truth.
Can I ask you? Do you know? Because the first thing I saw when I saw the comment, probably had the same reaction everybody else. Like, oh Jesus, here we go! Like, just lobbing this grenade into an already pretty tense dynamic between those two teams. But like, when you stand back from it, what did he have a point in what he was saying in terms of Mayo being the point being that, like, Mayo were more obsessed with being seen to stand up for themselves than sticking to the agreed plan?
You're putting me in the spot now, aren't you?
I am. Did he have a point?
If I said I didn't read it, would I be lying?
There's no way those comments haven't some way or another. Somebody's dropped them into a WhatsApp group somewhere along the line.
Listen, like, you can't exactly pinpoint every moment or every minute from games. Like, I mean, the two teams have macho moments themselves, so it'd be silly for me to say they didn't. To say we got caught up in it, I don't know. Like, that's here to say. Like, I mean, we went out to perform to the best of our ability in them games. So, I mean, to go into a game thinking if I'm going to be as macho I can, we knew that's never going to win a game. Like, there are high pressure games. Of course, you're going to get caught up with some of the moments in that game, but to say that was solely the reason we lost, I can't agree with that fully, because, like, we went out to perform to the best of our ability. We were 100% confident we were going to win those games. That's not a word of lie. And we just didn't. Dublin just were better than us than days. But to say that it was a match thing, no. We had to have a game plan to play one of the best teams that we've ever come across. And it nearly worked, but it didn't quite come over. And that's the way we looked at the game. It was just try and get a good game plan that was going to beat Dublin in them games.
So it's on the record. It hasn't been discussed, is what you're saying.
Well, it's definitely not discussed this year, or going forward. No.
Okay. What the reason I was sort of asking about it was, like, the aggressiveness is a big part of your game, right? Like, Andy Moran has written about it in his book. That was it a horrible player? Is that the horrible player to play against? Am I right? Is that the
quote? Yeah.
What? So, like, that line of aggression between, like, there's a negative and a positive to that, but you've always seemed to be able to walk the positive side of the aggressive play.
Yeah, but I suppose people have to realize we're playing a contact sport. So there has to be a level of aggression brought into these games. And that's the same with the league this year as well. You have to have a form of aggression, or else essentially you're saying to your man, well, you can walk all over me for the full 70 minutes and kick what you want, do what you want. And it is, I'm not saying like to cross the line, but you have to be on the edge sometimes. And most top teams like ourselves do play on the edge sometimes. And that's the way most high level sports are across every coat. And a team that tells you otherwise, and they're probably lying. You have to have that level of aggression going into games, or else you're going to get walked over. And the way Gaelic is at the moment, particularly around that middle third, it's a bit of a war zone, and teams are going to physically dominate other teams. And that's no different from a Mayo Dublin game to a Kerry Tyrone game, or even this weekend we're playing Kildare. That's just the way the nature of the game has gone.
Are you looking around you last weekend going, what is Aidan O'Shea doing back here? He's basically fulfilling every position now on the pitch, and the latest is in the half back line. What's the natural progression of him, do you think, as there's obviously so much, he's one of those players that occupies so much debate around the summertime as to how he's going, what his best position is and all that sort of stuff. I don't know, is he likely to spend more time in the back line going forward, or he's
looking for the goalie jersey next?
Yeah, it's not far off.
His last remaining position, so. To be honest, in the type of guy Aidan is, he's a very good structural kind of guy. He can read the game really well, and he's a very good organizer and leader. So, and he's a big guy to get the ball on. So, it would make sense to give him a go there and see how it goes. I'd love to see more of it, to be honest. He gives a good bit of protection throughout the game against Tyrone, and the way Tyrone set up as well, I suppose. Drop a lot of numbers back, leave a lot of space one side. So Aidan was doing really well in reading that. So he's not short of getting that goalie position after all this either. So
is he basically just like a third midfielder that he's going to operate in that sort of space? We're all obsessed with this. What position is he in? And actually, it's just sort of a third midfielder anyway. Essentially,
yeah. And Aidan's a very good ball player, so I mean, it's no brainer to play him around the middle third. And in the size he is and the presence he is, Aidan's tackling is probably one of the best in the country. So, I mean, to get Aidan in around that area is crucial for us getting turnovers and moving the ball quick in transition. So, it's a role that I know he loved playing in. So, I'm sure it's going to be reviewed and looked at again going forward.
Yeah, it could appear anywhere. Nobody knows. Can I ask you before we let you away? Was it very disappointing? And I sort of facetiously mentioned at the top that it's great to speak with you because we haven't had a huge amount of chance to speak with players or coaches over the last few weeks. Was it very frustrating how all that played out, Lee, in terms of the mileage and the expenses, and that the GPA obviously felt it had come to a point where a ban was required?
I mean, it's like most of the topics. If you want to get wrapped around it and caught up in it, then you can discuss it till the cows come home. I mean, from me as a player and us as a playing group, I suppose, I don't know how people have time sometimes to be talking how many times that we train a week. We just want to go train and be ready for any game that comes up. So, I mean, it's obviously it's a hot topic at the moment. But I'm pretty sure so they're going to have to come to some resolution at some stage. I mean, it's a pretty simple fix if they want to do it. And Joe, there's probably no need to drag it on longer than it should be. So I mean, it's just one of those things. It's coming pretty hot, and it's the hot topic of every kind of after league game at the moment, post league game. We should be talking about the games and not these kind of situations, I suppose.
Did you agree with the ban, or did you think, because there was a good point made that actually putting the players front and centre to say we're not happy with this would have been as effective as a ban?
I think ban's a strong word. A
recommendation not to speak.
Recommendation, I mean, probably even better. I think by saying a ban to an adult, it's like telling a baby not to have milk. It's like you want to do it then, so. Yeah. So I mean. I don't know. I'm it's looking for that. It can be a quick fix. I don't see why it needs to be dragged out longer than it should be. I think for myself as a player, I just want to go out and play games. Again, we're talking about a short season. We don't want to be talking about these matters that are I suppose taken away from what's been a brilliant Division 1 campaign so far for all teams and all divisions across. So I mean, it's kind of, to me, it's kind of pointless. Yeah.
Look, that's fair enough. Is this the year? Is this the year it happens?
We'll see how Sunday goes first.
Yeah. Plenty of football to be played. Listen, absolute pleasure chatting with you over the last 20 minutes or so. John West, Ambassador, and you can check out all those details. We give out full details from our social channels as well. Lee Keegan, thanks a million.
Thanks a million, guys. Cheers. Appreciate it. Thank you.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Just to have the level of passion around again. People love the idea of coming and supporting Ireland. We're all very proud to represent Ireland.
He wants us to play attractive football, wants us to get the crowd on their feet, wants us to be attacking.
In swinger. Oh! The goal! The Republic of Ireland have scored! John Egan with his first first ever international goal. What a moment for Stephen Kenny, the biggest moment of Kenny's reign so far.
Support has been magnificent and thinking my name, but I'm happier just thinking about the players, because the players really deserve credit.
Will it be another Stephen Kenny love in this international window? We've got the best coverage and analysis right here on OTB Sports Radio.
But like, even as I talk about there, right, like the decisions you make, when you think back on all the advice you gave me growing up, is there anything you'd alter or change?
Not one thing, no.
Nothing?
No.
What would you say was the best bit of advice you gave me?
Your attitude, your character, and don't ever give up.
Like the reason I asked that is because I always have one moment. I'll never forget it. I was playing hurling with Blackrock. I'd have probably been 14 or 15. I'd have probably been under 15.
Yeah.
We were training in the back pitch, for anyone familiar with Church Road. And it was after school or whatever. And I had one of those days at school where, you can't be bothered. It's like kind of cold. And I was training. I remember...
It was a good few of those days, David, yeah.
Yeah. But you came up with that quote that's not only stuck with me, but stuck with a lot of the lads that I played hurling with and Gaelic with growing up, obviously with Blackrock and Michaels. As you said, like, some people come to training and some people come to train. And that was probably the one bit of advice that stuck with me the whole time. And it did take me a good 18 months, 2 years for it to actually resonate in my mind what it actually meant. Like, that it's no, like, there were a lot of lads there who probably didn't, I'm obviously speaking about hurling at this time, didn't have as much skill and talent as I did. Like, I have no problem saying to anyone, I was 10 times the hurler I was, a football player. I'd have easily played for Cork.
Yeah.
I've no doubt in that.
You'd have been handy for me in the last few years as a wing forward.
Yeah, I would have. Yeah. I'd have helped you in the All-Ireland. I was even in the crowd.
Frank actually said that to me before,
but hurling came naturally to me. But like I in my career, I don't think I've put more time into, like, on my own, one-on-one on my own into hurling. The times I used to, but that was probably what later in life helped me with my work ethic and my desire to become better at a certain skill or attribute. Like, obviously, you mentioned earlier, I lived in Rochestown growing up, but like, we had Rochestown College down the road, and I remember you used to give me a brand new slitter and say, like, bring it back to me in a few hours. And I used to be down in Handball Alley, cycle down there, and I used to hit the ball off the wall for hours. Like,
But you have to, the snooker player at 15 is doing that. Well, he's probably doing it since he's 6 or 7. Sarah was doing it when she was swimming. You go to Johnny Sexton, you go to Peter O'Mahony, you go to all of those guys. Why? Because they had a ball in their hand all the time. They were doing it all the time. And it's just repetition.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance PLC.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, coming up on 9:20, it's Friday morning, and it's Adrian and Eoin with you until 10 this morning. During the ads, though, you'd have seen a preview, little teaser clip of the former Republic of Ireland international footballer David Moylette, and he was chatting in depth with his dad John, the legendary hurling manager, of course, and it's part of the Passing It On series that's appearing on OTB Sports, and it's all in association with Gillette Labs. You can check out the usual OTB channels and see the hashtag effortless flow for much more on that. It's a fascinating conversation, and the two of them, whenever they get together, are just so giving. Like, they have such honest conversations, sometimes slightly veering at the side of being a bit awkward almost.
Or like
the honesty of them.
But the honesty, yeah, it is unreal. Some of the stuff that David would say about John and vice versa when they're on the show. I think we kind of knew down through the years that there was obviously a very, very close relationship with them, almost a kind of a mentor-mentee relationship as much as a father-son relationship, and I think we can hear in that clip there that that's exactly what they enjoyed down through the years. And I you know what I love about that clip as well? David Myler being like, I would easily have been a Cork hurler. Easily would have been one of the best players there. A very un-Irish thing. I like it.
Very Cork thing.
Well, actually, that is a good point. That's separate Irishness, Corkness for sure. Yeah,
Munster by the grace of God. And all that.
What would have happened? Like, would a player of that quality have got them over the line against Limerick in that All Ireland semi-final, for example, in 2018? Possibly.
There's the headline clip. David Myler would have won the All Ireland for Cork. Right, it's a Mayo love-in as always here on OTB AM this morning, and tomorrow night fighting for the WBC International Silver Super Lightweight title in Leeds will be Ray Moylette, and I'm delighted to say that just over 24 hours out from the fight, he joins us now live on the line. Ray, good morning to you.
Good morning, lads. How are you doing?
You are looking very relaxed for a man just over 24 hours out from his first fight in 3 years.
Not only is the fight is 100 miles away at this minute, but I've weigh-in today at 1 o'clock, and usually my wife kicks me out of the house a week before the weigh-in because I'm hard to live with and hard to deal with. But I didn't think I'd ever be doing an interview the morning of a weigh-in, and fresh as a daisy and in good form and in high spirits.
What happened? What's changed? Why is this one different?
This has changed. I have a new plan in place. I've been targeting this fight for a very long time, so I knew it was going to come at some stage rather than later, and I knew I had to be ready. I haven't been in Dublin the last 24 months as much as I would like to have been. So with me not being able to go up to Dublin and train with Packy Collins every time, I try to keep everything in my own control on point at home. So I looked after my body and I wasn't abusing myself. Whereas in the past, when I was training and going well, I could take the chances. I could eat the rubbish food. I could go out at the weekend, and I could, that's the reality of it. Yeah. Because I'm training hard all week. I deserve it, but that's not the case. I didn't deserve to do that to my body for the last 9 or 10 months, and I sort of had to make the call and just do it. So. I've new people in helping me now as well, and good friends, and the odds are against me here with this, so I have to give myself every advantage for this fight against Dalton Smith. He's the home fighter. It's on an Eddie Hearn show. Eddie Hearn is his man. I have to give myself every advantage. If I was over here struggling at weight and just about getting into the ring, it would look very bad for me, and it wouldn't be good for my performance. So thankfully, I am in a better position. Also, while I just continue on it, this fight is a weight above the fight I fought at in Castlebar. It's 5 pound heavier.
Okay.
Which is my natural weight. I don't know, 5 pound mightn't sound an awful lot to your regular viewers, but in boxing terms, it's a lot. It's a weight above again. So, when you're down to your most minimum, 5 pound is a lot to get rid of again. So thankfully, I don't have to chase that this time, and I'm walking around on weight and comfortable.
Is it too much to say that it's been a bit of a come to Jesus moment for you, Ray, in the sense that you're in that company now, you've got that big press conference during the week, there's a lot of profile on it. Just listen to you explain how it's come about that you don't have the same weight challenges because you've been looking after yourself better. Is that like a realisation of maybe I wasn't doing it as well as I should have been up to this point, but from here on out, this is the approach?
Not really, because I was a young fella and I couldn't be told anything. If you told me how to do it, I was going to do it the other way, whether it was right or wrong. So I think that comes with experience and it comes with age. I'm 31 now. I have a lot of years, I have a lot of miles on the clock, and I know this is not going to last forever. So I want to make sure that when it does come to an end, that I've given it my absolute best and I've given it absolutely everything, and I have no regrets. A regret would sacrifice or would crucify me over the next few years to be thinking of it. I should have done this or I could have done that. Whereas I'm in a position now to do them things, and my body is allowing me to do it, thank God. And I know I've no stone unturned here, and I have no choice to do it, because win or lose, that's okay. But if I lose it on my own terms, that'll kill me down the line,
Yeah. The bad form stuff about the place, is that directly weight related as opposed to thinking about the fight?
Oh, Well, it's actually both. You know, if I'm at a balls making the weight and I was struggling here today, that'd be my own fault. You know, there's no one else to blame there. I'm the boxer. You know, I see football teams blaming managers for performing bad and all that. That's not my style, and that's not the reality of it. You know, at the end of the day, if I do well in the ring, everyone gets praised and all that. But if I do bad in the ring, it's on me. You know, so I don't want that to be my legacy. My legacy is surely it's worth a lot more than that.
Yeah. You say you haven't been in Dublin much over the last 24 months, Ray. I think it was actually probably 24 months ago around this time when you were doing the push-up challenge on this show that Friday morning. What has it like been back in Mayo predominantly, I guess, working away as well and trying to keep the fitness up, knowing that this moment was going to come?
A small fall from grace. You know, I was a full-time professional athlete before COVID came. That obviously closed a lot of things. It closed the entertainment sector, which I'm in. So I had to come back home, regroup. In the middle of that, we had a child, a first baby, in the middle of the pandemic. So, you know, priorities changed. I needed money in the house. I wasn't getting it from boxing. I couldn't be gone anymore. And, you know, things changed. So I had no option. I couldn't go to Dublin on the hope I'd get a fight in a few weeks' time, be away from Kobe Ray, be away from Sheahan, and not bringing any money into the house. You know, that's not my style. I'm not going to be dragged up this way, or either is my family. So I had to make the decision to try and join the two of them together, try and work hard when I was at home. You know, I literally have no outlet at home at all. People haven't really seen me, haven't been out and about, because I've been working or I've been training or I've been at home minding my kids. I haven't been doing anything else in the last 2 years. And if you know me, that's not my style at all. I'm stuck in everything, involved in everything. You couldn't miss me if you walked into Rocky's in Castlebar. But obviously them days are gone now too. But I've come to realisation that my boxing career isn't what it should be, and there's no one to blame, only myself. You know, we've been here before. I've been fighting for titles before. I think it's off the ball. You've given me some serious coverage over the last couple of years. You know, I was one shot away from Olympic qualifier in Rio. I missed the fight then, the big homecoming fight for the WBC belt in Castlebar. I missed that. The push-ups, I was 5 or 6 or 10 push-ups short on the night. Like, I'm never afraid to put my neck out there and see what I have and see what I got. You know, like, I'm not going to just sit on the couch and say, I could have bet them lads. You know, watching the TV on Saturday night, I'd say, I could have bet them if I got the chance. But no one ever gave me the chance. I'm playing the blame game. I'm not here to blame anyone. I'm fully responsible for this myself. And everyone that's helped me over the years as well, and they're still helping me. And they were helping me when there was nothing happening. I came up with the narrative like that I was on the couch for the last 3 years. Obviously I wasn't, but on paper I was. And I had still people helping me in them times, believing in me that there was something going to come out of it. And thank God they stuck with me and they kept the dream alive, you know.
And like a win, obviously, tomorrow night now suddenly makes all of that right and makes the journey, like it's a natural, endpoint is not the word, it's a natural next step on the path, as you see it, I presume.
Of course, and you know, I was trying to weigh up this, like, how big is this fight? I was trying to weigh it up, you know, coming over on the plane, myself and Mark Brennan, and it's the biggest fight in my career up to this date was an Olympic qualifier in Venezuela, and there was 7 in the weight, I believe, and 3 qualified, and whoever I met in the first, if you lost the first fight, you didn't get to fight again. But if you won the first fight, you had 2 fights after that. I know it sounds a bit complicated, but long-winded story. There was an Armenian lad in the weight of the 7, and I met him in the first fight, and he bet me. So that ended the dream. And he went on to stop his next 2 opponents, and one of them qualified along with another guy. So it was actually harder for me not to qualify for the Olympics that time than it was to qualify, the way the draw worked. But I was trying to weigh it up. How big is this compared to that? And I'm going to put them on level par. The Olympics was always my dream as a child growing up, and it was the be-all and end-all of amateur boxing. But now, this is, I know it's only for WBC belt. It's not only for WBC belt. It's to get in contract with Eddie Hearn and to get the platform to be able to fight on these shows at a regular basis and to ultimately make a few pounds at the end of the day. Eddie Hearn is the man that has it, and he's given me a chance to get it off him, and I believe I took the chance in my best interest that I can do it and I can take it.
Ray, can I ask, when you said there a moment ago that you've had you never blame anybody else, you're always looking at yourself. Has that always been the way with you, or has something changed at some point in your career?
No, I'd say it's only in the last year or two, because we all want to blame someone else for things not going right for you. You blame the weather, you blame the referee in a football match, you blame the goalie, he didn't do something right, you blame the judges in a boxing fight. I've done it. I've not come to this realization overnight. But at the end of the day, it's me that has to throw the head on the pillow at night, and I have to stay with myself and sleep with myself, and I'm in my own head as well. So if I can throw my head at the pillow at night, I've done all I can do, well then I'm going to be happy, win or lose, and that's the reality of it.
And the thing is, you would have been forgiven for blaming an actual global pandemic for shutting down, as you say, the literal industry that would fund you as a boxer, but it's not something that you chose to do.
Well, I'm not, because how many boxers are going to choose that and blame that? And then I'm just a number. Whereas I put too much into this, put too many years into it, put too much sacrifice into it to just be a number at this stage. And I said it before, I'm happy to go out on my shield. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to go on a blaze of glory. I'm not just going to fade away into the darkness and say, whatever happened to that Mayo boxer that was there? He was doing all right, wasn't he? Oh, pandemic came and that was in. That's not how my story goes.
This guy is technical, powerful, 7 KOs. He's stylish. He's a big prospect. What's the plan?
Stylish on paper. Big hitter on paper. I won't know until I'm in the ring with him. I know a lot. Over the last 8 weeks, we've been working on plans and tactics and strategies for Packy Collins and the video footage. And I'll know more in the first minute of this fight than I would have picked up in them 8 weeks, because everything changes and reaction comes into place. You can go in, you can do all the jotting down you want and all the planning, but in reality the fight takes its own course. We see it all the time, and I believe I am going to do something in this fight that I've never done before, which is box out of my skin in terms of skill. Maybe sometimes I was boxing for the crowd, or maybe sometimes I just wanted to fight, but this is going to be a skillful operation from me rather than playing for the crowd. I have a handful of people coming over, close family and close friends, and that's it. That's a big fall from grace from 2,000 people in the TF in Castlebar. So things change. I don't have anything to prove anymore to anyone else. I don't even have to prove it to myself, but I want to show myself that I'm capable and worthy to be on this stage, and I can only do that with skill and with heart.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're like in a great space. Are you almost interested to see how you yourself are going to go in the ring?
Yes, I am, because I've had over 300 amateur fights. This is my 13th fight as a professional, and for all them fights and all them years, I'm over 20 years at this level now. Well, not this obviously level, but in competitive level. There has been 5 times the amount of that of sparring. So I've been in the ring my whole life, whether it's fighting or sparring, and I've been with top operators and I've been with good lads and bad lads, but I've never been outmatched. I've never been uncomfortable in the ring. I've often been bet in the ring. I was knocked down in the ring. I've always got up, but I've never been uncomfortable in the ring, and I'm not going to be uncomfortable in the ring on Saturday night. There's nothing that he can do to me that hasn't been done to me already. You know, I have I've lost. My undisputed record is gone. I've no weight to carry. He's the prospect. He's the one that has to show that he's the next big thing. I'm taking a chance that was handed to me. I was contemplating retirement for the last 3 years with no fight, but I obviously would never have done it. But it came into my head more often than it didn't.
Yeah.
So he has a big mission on his hands, because if he beats me, who did he beat? He bet a Paddy that came over on the boat that was on the couch for the last 3 years. He won't even get the recognition. But it's not even going to come to that. But he has a lot more to lose than I have. I can only gain. I had nothing up to this, and I'm here now ready to take the shot.
Well, as we were a couple of years ago on the show, we'll be cheering you on, Ray, over the weekend. Fair play to you for taking the call this morning. If you were any more relaxed there, you'd be lying on the bed. So, good man. Keep that up. Good luck with the weigh-in, and more importantly, best of luck tomorrow night.
Thank you very much, lads. After the ball, you've been very good to me over the years, and even through the pandemic, as you mentioned, with the push-ups as well. So delighted to be on, and thank you very much for all the coverage, and best of luck to you all.
We'll talk to you when you have the W in the bank next week. Good man.
Please God. See you soon, lads. Thanks
a lot. Ray Moylette in action this weekend. Dalton Smith, it's in Leeds and it's on DAZN, and you got to be cheering that guy on. Some comments that have come in to us. Richard Redball saying that Westmeath is best known for being on the way to Galway. John Wayne is still on acid. Good man. No quiz anymore, he's wondering. Next week.
Be back next week. Sorry about that, John Wayne on acid.
And Ram says Barry's the kind of guy that'll predict a Mayo loss and a Keegan red card this weekend after interviewing him. Is that the reputation I have?
Yes.
As
Stabbing people in the
producer
back.
Joe this morning points out, he says that he's highlighting my ability to maintain professional detachment and objectivity.
Yes,
And,
that's exactly what he's doing.
I can get on board with that. Today's competition winner, by the way, Donncha Lynch. Good morning to you, Donncha. You're going to the TikTok Six Nations tie between Ireland and Wales tomorrow, 4:45 at the RDS. And if you want to head along to support Ireland, by the way, just remember, tickets still available at ticketmaster.ie. And our overall winner of the day, of the week, of the stay at the stunning Intercontinental Hotel, a stone's throw from the RDS, is Oisín Tormey. Good man. Oisín won a bit earlier in the week, and enjoy that weekend and enjoy the game, and thank you, Eoin. Enjoy your own weekend.
Yeah, take care, you too.
Meaningless tie against Tyrone. Enjoy it, and we'll catch up with you next week. We're going to leave you this morning with some John Giles. Good morning.
Yeah, and you're very welcome back to the show. It being a Thursday night, it is our delight and our pleasure, as always, to welcome the one and only John Giles to the show. John, good evening to you.
Evening, Richie.
How are you getting on?
I'm okay, thank you.
Good to hear, good to hear. A lot going on. We'll look ahead to Ireland and Belgium a little bit later on. We've also got a lot to look back on from the past weekend, and a lot of FA Cup action that kind of stuck out, I guess, as much for the aftermath thereof, in particular the Everton tie away to Crystal Palace, than for anything else. I mean, afterwards, with Everton being spanked 4-0 at Selhurst Park, Frank Lampard essentially threw his players under the bus. One might view it that way. He asked the open question in a press conference. We'll dress it up slightly here because we're on the radio and we don't want to get hauled off the air. He essentially asked openly, have you got the balls to play? Now, he necessarily wasn't addressing the Everton players, but he certainly wasn't not addressing them either. And there is a suggestion that he's not entirely happy with what he has at his disposal. And it's kind of the wrong end of the season and the wrong end of the table that Everton find themselves in to be kind of throwing those kind of words around, John.
Well, they got a hiding 4-0, as we know, Richie. I think they got a lucky win early on in the week against Newcastle, which was a big win for them in the position that they're in. But the problem with a lot of managers going into a new club, in Frank's case, you don't really know what's there, Richie, until you get in. You know, you assume, well, Joe Bloggs is a good player, and then, but it doesn't always work out that way. And you know, when Benitez was there, he was going on all the time about the players that the club brought in. He didn't have a say in all the, don't get a say in any of them, and that's been going on for a long time, which he said left them with a lot of bad boys and a lot of poor players in the club. So with Frank's situation, all managers go into a club not really knowing. You assume, well, he's a good player, he's not, but you don't know what the atmosphere is in the club when you go in. And I'd say Frank, I mean, things haven't been good at Everton since he's gone in. He's had a couple of good wins, But it's only when you're in that you realise what you have or you don't have, Richie. And I'd say he knows now what he has or doesn't have.
They kind of remind me, John, of when you go shopping and you're after buying a load of fruit and veg, but you get back to the fridge and you open up the fruit and veg drawer and there's, you know, the remnants of 3 or 4 shops just gone, still sitting in there and going rotten. And Everton kind of have that in a sense with their squad, because they've got, you know, players who were there under Roberto Martinez, they've got players who were there under Sam Allardyce, they've got players who were there under Benitez, as you mentioned. Ronald Koeman was obviously in there as well. And there seems to be this mishmash of real average players who are being asked serious questions now in terms of their form, and it doesn't seem as a collective that they're able to do anything to get out of it at the moment.
Well, the problem is, from what I read of it and see of it, is that there was a director of football picking those players. And that's what Benitez did come out, well, more or less came out, to say that, look, I didn't pick those players. And that's what's been going on, and that's what's got them into a bad position. You know, director of football hasn't been sacked as far as I see at Everton. But what happens with the managers, they get these players in and they take responsibility for the purchase of the players. And generally speaking, they're not their players. You know, 90% of the job, you might have heard me saying on this programme before, as a manager, 90% of the job is getting the players in you want and getting rid of the players you don't want. But if somebody else is picking the players, it's their players and their pick. And no two people in my experience in football have the same opinion on players. But in my opinion, the manager should be making the purchases all the time, because he has a vision of what he wants, and the director of football putting the players in, buying the players. Now, the director of football very seldom gets criticism. It's the manager that gets criticism and gets the sack. Yeah. And I think that's what Benitez was saying for a while at Everton. I didn't buy the players here. I'm taking responsibility for it.
Those around Everton will point out, I think Marcel Brands was the director of football there. I think they got rid of him or he walked while Benitez was still there, because it was a power struggle obviously ongoing, and there obviously will be whenever Benitez is in charge anywhere. But Brands walked. But the talk about him was that even he didn't have the power to buy players, and it wasn't even necessarily the manager, that a lot of these signings were being foisted upon both the director of football. So you have a director of football with no say-so over the acquisitions at all, and then you've got a manager who has some but not everything, and you've got the board dictating everything. So you're going to end up in these positions whereby if you've got like stuff just being thrown at you, you're not going to be able to juggle it 100% of the time. You're going to have some fall on the floor.
It's right. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens, what annoys me is you pick a manager for his football experience and knowledge, and then you don't use it. You know, like if you see, well, what happens is, you know, the owner comes in, he's got the power to do it, and he'll have the last say, or maybe most of the say, on who's coming in, because that's what he likes. But he might be a great businessman, but he's not a football man. I mean, football managers have their expertise. They're usually ex-players, and they've been in the game a long time. They know who they want. They can pick a good player, pick good players out. But I mean, a lot of people that I find in directors and that, they know so little about the game. They think they know a lot. It comes back in the long run. I mean, it's the same thing. Similar things happen to Manchester United. In the end, it doesn't work, Richie. You know, football managers are in the job as a football expert. Well, not an expert, but a football man.
On Lampard's quotes in particular, is it unusual to see a manager who doesn't have his feet under the table that long go so strongly against what he's seen from his players on the pitch?
Oh yeah, well Frank has been in football all his life, and he went into management, as we know, at Derby and Chelsea, and did a good job. He's only a young manager, but he would know, having seen them for a week or two, that this isn't right. Now, going in, like most managers, being optimistic, say, well, they're not going well, but I can get them better. That's what you think going into it. But if the players are in there that are not good, don't have a good attitude, there's nothing you can do about it, Richie. And I think Frank, after getting the hiding 4-0, would be thinking, oh my God, what have I got here? You know, because he's seeing 3 or 4 or 5 matches, whatever it is, and he'd soon pick it up from that position. You know, I think they got a bit lucky to win during the week against Newcastle and then get a 4-0 hiding in the cup. And he's only been there a few weeks. And like any manager, Richie, you don't really know what you're getting into until you get into it.
Yeah. The problem is as has been mentioned before, that there's a lot of people there that have been there a while, and more than it's easier to buy a player almost than it is to shift one that you already have out the door. And Everton have had this position whereby there's players there who've been loyal, and I guess Seamus Coleman is one of those who's been a brilliant performer for them down through the years. But there's a feeling now that he may have crested the hill and will be on the downside now. It was pointed out after, I think was it Jamie Carragher was pointed out during the Arsenal game recently, that Everton have a championship defence, and Seamus Coleman, he would most certainly factor into that. Would that be a harsh assessment on Coleman, or would that be?
I think it's very harsh. I don't think Seamus Coleman has ever got the credit that he deserved, even when Everton were doing okay. And I've seen lots of matches now with Everton recently, and they're a poor team at the moment, but I don't think Seamus is responsible for it at all. And that's, he shares the responsibility as captain as some of the other players, but he's not to blame, in my opinion, from what I've seen of the team. I think it's easy to pick out somebody like Seamus because he's 31, 32 now.
Yeah.
So therefore he's old. So therefore it has to be him. I've seen it so many times before. I don't think that's the case with Seamus Coleman. I mean, he is responsible, the same as everybody else, for the position they're in. But if you look at Seamus Coleman all the years, the one thing about him, he's probably one of the most honest players I've ever seen. And when Everton are not playing well, and Frank would be talking about this, in my opinion, it's because the players are not having a go. That's the basic thing.
And he's the kind of personality that you want in a dressing room. When he's talking about players not having the balls to play, I mean, Seamus Coleman is certainly one of those players who would never be asked.
No, ever. In his career, he's one of the most honest lads I've ever seen on a football pitch, Seamus Coleman. So what Frank could be talking about is dishonest lads. Now, I'm not saying Seamus Coleman played well. I know players don't play well all the time, but it wouldn't be for the lack of effort.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I think what Frank is talking about is lack of effort and approach to the game. That's what really kills the managers. And he's in a strange position, or a dodgy position, in terms that they don't seem to be putting their hands in the box to buy players.
Yeah.
Like if you take the Newcastle case with Eddie Howe going there, he was promised a lot of money, and he spent it, and obviously seems to have spent it well. But that hasn't been the case at Everton. So Frank might be stuck with these lads, having walked into it.
There's a lot he's stuck with. There's a lot that he, has. There's some he's brought in. We touched, I know, when Dele Alli was signed back in January. That was myself and yourself speaking then, and they brought in Van de Beek as well. But there seems to be an 11 and off. They've got, to be fair, like looking at the table and the teams above them, the teams directly above them will be Brentford and Leeds, both of whom Everton have played 3 games fewer than. But as always, like, you'd rather have the points on the board than the games in hand, and they're in no form at the minute. So in a way, this international break is almost a godsend, that they can just retain who they have for the week now, who hasn't gone away in international duty, recalibrate, and then head off into these last, what it would be, 11 games of the season for Everton, and try and get out of trouble.
It's come at the right time for them. But he did, I think we said it at the time, he did sign Dele Alli, which I wouldn't have taken for nothing. And he's hardly been in the team, Dele Alli.
Yeah.
But looking at him at Spurs, I mean, there was 3 managers turned him down at Spurs, and I don't think it's a coincidence. You go back to a time where he was a younger lad, and then he signed a new contract, and I think a very, very
lucrative one,
good one.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen before, and the player think, oh, that's it now. And he certainly gives me that impression that since he signed that contract, he hasn't kicked the ball. Then he's off. Then he had Mourinho. He had a lad there from Wolves at the start of the season. Yeah. Somebody else turned him down, left him out of the team because he wasn't doing his stuff. And Frank is taking him on, so I don't think that's a good move for him. And when you're down near the bottom of the league and you're looking for fighters, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, law of averages suggests 3 managers in a row can't all be wrong.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a good player. You're not going to. Why would you leave a good player out of the team and not have anything to do with him? If he's not trying a leg, that's what happens. And it's not just one manager, there's 3 managers who've done it.
Yeah. So. Can you see them getting out of trouble?
Sorry?
Can you see them getting out of trouble? Do you think they'll be okay?
Chelsea?
Everton.
Everton.
Yeah.
I think they'll just have enough to do it. They've had some bad results recently with Leeds winning, one or two of the other teams that are down near the bottom winning. But I mean, if they went down, Richie, it wouldn't be a big surprise. You know, big teams have gone down before. If they're not doing their stuff, they're not fighting.
Sure,
they can go down, definitely.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a gap there between themselves and Watford, but certainly Everton by no means out of danger. No. Flicking back up to the other end of the table, Manchester City still leading, just about, only by a point heading into this international break. They were involved in an FA Cup tie themselves last weekend, beating Southampton by 4-1. But a lot of those goals were, loaded towards the back end of that game and took something pretty special from Phil Foden to put it to bed. But City, last couple of weeks, not necessarily haven't been pulling up any trees. And with Liverpool breathing down the necks, it's going to make for an interesting last couple of months of the season.
I think it's huge. I honestly don't think, and I think I said it on your programme, Richie, I don't think they've been playing as well as the scores suggest. Now, that might sound odd, but there's a few matches I saw them and they've won, and I thought, that's not City doing what they're doing. And the first half against Southampton the other day, I thought they were poor. Half their game, 50% of the game, is getting tight on the opposition, running them down, putting them under pressure, all those things that they did. But I don't think they're doing that now, and they certainly didn't do it on Saturday. Second half, they pulled up all right. But, going back, even though when a lot of people were saying they've run away with the league, I saw matches that they didn't play as well as they should. And to be honest now, I'd be surprised if Liverpool don't overtake them.
You reckon Liverpool can catch them?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think if I was putting money on it now, I'd go on Liverpool to win it.
Okay. Is that based purely on City's form at the minute, or is it more so that, like, you look at Liverpool's results since Christmas, I guess, that blip that they had, and those results against West Ham and Leicester, like, since then they've been just imperious, really. They've had blips here and there. I mean, the game against Forest is a tricky one to judge because there were a few players missing and there were several changes made for that tie, and etc., etc. But City will say the same for their game at Southampton. But they're managing to get results. They're managing to keep going, eke it out, keep getting 3 points here and there, keep getting into the next round of everything they're in.
Yeah. Well, they're playing on it. Well, first of all, they've got a better strike force than City have. They've got about 4 or 5 strikers, good players. Like City don't, as you know. They were trying to get Harry Kane, they couldn't get him. But they're doing well for the players that they have. I think City, except for last week, I saw them. They just weren't up to it or on their best in the way that they have been in over the last few years. And I've seen them win matches as well recently, Richie, or before. And I thought that's not quite City, although they were winning the matches. They weren't quite there in getting after the players and the enthusiasm. But I just think watching Liverpool, they're more of an all-round team at the moment, and that's why I would fancy Liverpool to catch them.
There was an interesting line from Jurgen Klopp. I think it was after that game at Forest, where he was talking about the issue with Manchester City and having no recognised centre forward, etc., came up, and he said that's not really the essence of what Manchester City are trying to do, or the root of any problems that they may have. Because he was saying, like, they've had chances and they create chances, plenty in games, and he pointed out, like, Kevin De Bruyne missing from 6 yards or whatever, when that's not a result of them not having a striker. That's just Kevin De Bruyne not putting the ball away. But
if a striker was in that position, there's more chance of him putting it away. I mean, De Bruyne is not really playing in a midfield play, very far forward now. So, I mean, he's not an out-and-out striker. I mean, if they had Harry Kane, they definitely would have somebody to stick the ball in the back of the net, Richie. They could be making chances, all right. But it doesn't mean you're going to be scoring from them. And De Bruyne is one of the... I'm not a great admirer of De Bruyne. I think he's too moody. And he was certainly moody the other day against South. Well, I see him that way anyway. That's my opinion on him. But, even in midfield... I think Liverpool are stronger midfield. They're definitely stronger up front. So, of course, they'll make chances. But that's why you have the striker there to finish them off, Richie. Yeah. It's midfield players who are missing the chances because they don't have the expertise that Mane has or any any of the strikers, 4 strikers that they have.
Yeah.
Jota, and of course Salah.
Yeah, Jota's turned into a grand little goal poacher now at this stage almost. I don't think necessarily that was the kind of player that they thought they were buying from Wolves 18 months or 2 years ago now at this stage. But he has, like, he's one of these guys who he'll pop up in the 6-yard box. He's able to get, even though he's only about 5'7", he's able to get his head on things. Yeah. He's really turned into that little fox in the box for Liverpool that I don't think they had up until that point. They had a lot of wingers who were dressed up as strikers, I guess you'd say. But he's really turned into a proper little centre forward now at this stage.
Definitely, he's a top player. But they had Firmino as well.
Yeah,
It was a striker. But the thing is, it doesn't matter who's scoring the goals. That's what they're there to do. I mean, if you look at City at the moment, they just don't have a recognised striker. As you say, the midfield players are filling in, and with the chances that they make. But you know, they do, like all teams need. But I don't think they're playing as well as they had played. I think that a lot of this stuff from winning the ball back hasn't been there in the matches that I've seen. But I mean, it's going to be a terrific end to the season, because they're going to be playing Liverpool a fair bit as it looks at. But that's only my opinion at the moment. I think Liverpool will come out on top.
Okay. We'll spin this one back when May comes around.
Yes.
And we have neither of them are after winning the league, and suddenly Chelsea come from nowhere. We'll look ahead as well to this weekend, because obviously I mentioned the international break, and Ireland are playing Belgium in a friendly on Saturday night. It's an interesting one, this, because as we mentioned before, Belgium not necessarily bringing a full strength team. The likes of De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, Thibaut Courtois, Eden Hazard and several others, as they played more than 50 caps, they've not been brought over. So it's Stephen Kenny pointed out that it's not necessarily an understrength side, because they still have strikers like Michy Batshuayi and Divock Origi and others, and Christian Benteke, and you can go through that squad and pick out a fairly handy 11 no matter who they bring over. But it is a decent test for Stephen Kenny and for this Ireland side, because the end of the year in really good form. I mean, 6 games unbeaten, they haven't conceded in 4, which is remarkable stuff altogether. But they have had to contend with this departure of Anthony Barry, funnily enough, to Belgium, and he's going to be on the sideline this Saturday in the wrong dugout, I guess you'd say, at the Aviva for this friendly. He had some interesting comments during the week, John. I don't know if you caught them.
I think I did, Richie.
Okay.
And I don't know him, but he said going to Belgium was a no-brainer, because he was joining a big name like Martinez. Well, I don't think that's very respectful of him, talking about Stephen Kenny, because he's leaving them, but there's no mention of Stephen Kenny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, how does Stephen feel about the whole business? Yeah. Like, it was if it's no brainer, I have to go. I'm joining the best manager, and just totally disrespectful. But as far as the match is concerned, I think it's ideal for Stephen, to be honest. You know, because he's on a winning run, and with all those top players playing, then obviously it gives him a better chance. And that's what he's doing, is to build up the confidence of himself and the players and everybody around him. So I think it's ideal for him.
He's shown a bit of a backbone, I guess, in a sense, with the selection of this squad. And there's players missing. Gavin Bazunu was the latest ruled out today, and Adam Ida is one of those who's missing, who's been really impressive in recent Ireland showings. Andrew Omabamidele as well at the back, not here this weekend either. But he's left out the likes of Jamie McGrath, who, you know, every time he's been called upon in an Ireland jersey, hasn't let himself down and has actually played really well in the majority of games that he has played. But because his move to Wigan hasn't panned out, Kenny's left him out of the squad entirely. That shows a level of backbone, and I think a lot of people may have questioned when Stephen Kenny got the job, and that he's just going to pick young players for the sake of it. But if they're not playing week in and week out, and if they're not actually performing to the level that he needs them to, he's got no room for them.
I think so. I think Stephen has a lot of backbone. He went through a rough spell, as we know, but he stuck to what he believed in. He kept the players in that he wanted, and you find at an international level, there's going to be times where players are not playing on a regular basis and other players are. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be there forever, Richie. You know what I mean? That's the pick he's picked at this particular time, and he's given them all a chance. I mean, there is a friendly match as well, and he wants to win it, like everybody else wants to win it. But he is giving players a chance, and you can't see too much of your own players when you're going to pick the team. You know, the more you see them, the more you know about them, and make up your mind which one is which. And these things happen at international level.
What would represent a good result? Obviously, aside from winning it, but what would represent a good night's work on Saturday for Ireland?
For Stephen?
Yeah.
Well, the team playing well, Richie, and hopefully getting the result that he's able to play as well as that. But it's a long road and it's a friendly match, and it's seen, as a manager, I think from Stephen's point of view, that was good, that wasn't so good. So you can't see too many matches with the players that you have to get them up for the next match, which is when we start the
Nations League.
Nations League and that. So it's a learner, and in a match that you hope you do well and win. There's nothing better than winning. But it's not the end of the world if you're beaten in a match like this. But having a bad performance is a worry.
It's a nice yardstick, I guess. To like we can have the 6 results that we had towards the end of last year, and we can not concede in 4, but people will point towards who the opposition were in those games. So for this, even with a quote unquote weakened Belgian team, it's a nice yardstick for how far we've come in the past 12 months, I guess.
Oh, definitely. I think with the players not playing for, it's ideal for Stephen, because it obviously gives them a better chance of winning, and there's nothing better than winning matches. It gives the lads a chance out there to mature as they go along. A lot of young players in the team. So it's an ideal match for Stephen. And now, of course, the ideal position is to win it as well.
Yeah.
But play the way you want them to play, and play as well as they possibly can themselves. That'll be the main thing from Stephen's point of view.
Yeah, and tell Anthony Barry at the end of the game as well that winning was a no-brainer against him.
He was a bit disrespectful. Shouldn't have been.
I'm sure we'll get over it with a decent performance and maybe a result on Saturday night. John, thank you so much for everything again tonight.
Okay, Richie.
Cheers, John. Take care.
Say bye. Bye.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.